Who are you people? Timer's gonna be way off. Got a late start. Got a brand new foot thing that I'm supposed to sleep in tonight. Pretty stoked about that. I sleep on my chest, my stomach, I guess, because I think it'll be funnier if Mariah has to roll me over after she finds me dead. But that's like a personal preference thing. I don't know how everybody else sleeps. Sage was actually funny for the first time in his life. I might show the video. It was pretty good. It actually made me laugh like out loud. So kind of hard to do. He's not nearly as good as Eli, but he's getting there. Dr. J told me I wasn't family today. She said I'm going to hang out with my family, and that doesn't include you. I told her she's always been my grandma, and she told me I'm not family. Talk about being hurtful for no reason at all. Certified lover boys, y'all some certified pedophiles. Dude, Kendrick Lamar's fucking killing Drake. Yeah, I hurt my feelings pretty bad, but, you know. Dr. J only cares about her family, apparently. Whatever that means. Let's roll the intro.
Hey daddies, it's me, the Linda Binda from TikTok. I wanted to make this video because I wanted to thank you for watching Cold Beer Confessionals with Will Bird. I think that's just incredible. I've watched a few episodes and I'm just like very intrigued. But you know what I'm most intrigued in
just now
is Big Daddy's meat stick. I heard that it's very thick, like a good old German sausage.
At least.
You know, Linda and her coochie loves that. Oh, never mind. Let's
you
not
guys
go
ever
there.
heard of a bad German
Anyways,
sausage?
I hope you have a good show and enjoy it as you can. There's a lot of weird things that go on, especially when it comes from the realm of Linda Bindaland. So, enjoy the show. Thanks for watching. Peace out.
I don't think there is such a thing as a bad German sausage, right? They're all good. Yeah? I don't know. Anyways, thank you guys for joining us. I'm Will Bird. This is Cold Beer Confessional. Thanks for hanging out with me, even though Dr. J couldn't bring herself to be here because her real family apparently is around. I cried a little. I'm not going to lie. Thank you all for hanging out with us. If you want to contribute to the show, you can do that at coldbeer.fund, 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 F-U-N-D. There's a guy going viral on TikTok. I don't know why. Like, I can do these things. And it's the dumbest shit that takes off. I don't know why I never have ideas like this. So this guy basically, have you guys ever seen marble races where they build like courses on the beach and shit? This guy basically, well, everybody's doing it now, but the first guy was doing it by himself for like a week. He just built like a fake marble race and just puts like a profile picture or whatever on there, like a character picture on there, and then has them race. That's it. And millions of views. This isn't the original guy. The original guy's name is Marble Race something. Let me see if I can find him. Is it Ultimate Marble Race? A regular marble race used to be Ultimate Marble Race, yeah. So this guy. And he's got like music playing in the background, like meme songs, basically. But they're kind of hypnotizing, right? He's definitely making a ton of fucking views off these things, like a ton of views off these things. And it's like, not like this one's almost got 1 million views. It says pissing it off rather than starting new is, passing it off rather than starting new is so much better. It's got Juice WRLD's, XXS Tentacion, Plankton, and I don't know, Cartman, I guess. But this is it. And they make tons of money off views doing this. And it's kind of interesting, like especially, I don't know, if you see it and like something crazy's happening, it's kind of interesting to watch. But like anybody could literally take like one of those how to program a game in 1 hour courses and make this shit. But now that it's a viral sensation, there's like hundreds of people doing it. So it's basically not worth it. But for the first week he had it by himself. It was pretty wild. And I should have known this because I get suggested the dumbest fucking videos all the time. I get suggested all the time these live streams where they have soda cans and pool balls racing each other on a treadmill. Hold on, I'll see if I can find it. Hold on. I get suggested these all the time. Soda can on treadmill. And like I should have seen this. Like, well, you could do that without the treadmill, without making it real, without any of this being real, right? So this is Team Sprite versus Team Starry.
Old versus new. Who is winning the matchup? Which one is better? Story going absolutely wild off the start. Sprite staying very well maintained. Single foul for...
He's even sponsored by a betting company.
Breaking up Team Sprite, getting themselves into the corner. Sprite falling way far back. Story with a huge lead right now.
I should have seen this coming, dude.
This battle, they're not done yet. Story coming back up to the front.
Look how these motherfuckers are over here drafting in the corner. They're not even spinning. Just getting sanded.
Story with a huge win. Team Sprite versus Teams.
Like I should have known this was coming. Like if you could take all the hassle out of it, no Pepsi, no Coke, no pool balls, no treadmill, and just program it and just let it randomly run. Like I'm sure he's not manipulating the results. He's just honestly letting it randomly run, with a like generating randomness in the game. That's all it takes. You can even have people bet on it, but then they accuse you of fixing it and shit. But still. Oh God, I don't know what's playing, but it's probably a copyright strike. That seems like cheating if they're going to just set up here. No, they're not even on the treadmill. Wonder who will win. Red or blue, chat? Put in the chat now. You crocheted me something? Who'd you crochet something for? Did I forget that you said you crocheted me something? Well, it looks like Atsuko's wrong, but she's never told me I'm not family, so that's good. Oh, shit. Atsuko, got it. Oh, for Jesse. Thank you. I didn't, Mariah might have known that. Maybe I knew it. I have really bad short-term memory. I got a new welder today. That was something that happened. Let me show you Sage's video. It's actually pretty funny. For once. He did a short about these protesters. Now, the reason they're protesting has like nothing to do with anything that I cover. It's like a trucking thing, but still, it's pretty funny. It's pretty funny. There's a protest going on, so check this out.
Right here, all of our freight specialists and truckers, we are looking at the protest in Washington.
It's not actually at our post office. If you send it the same way as last time, I told Mariah to go pick it up. She thought it was at the post office too, but we have to pick it up at a Western Union place. And the one she likes to go to is where the grocery store is. So it's like a food line that does Western Union as well. And their thing has been down for like a month. Their system. They're supposed to be getting a new computer for Western Union or some shit. But yeah, it's I know you probably send it from your post office, and she went to our post office to try to pick it up, but it's actually a Western Union thing.
As you can see, we have enforced 49 CFR 371.
Look how old those fucking people are.
And all hours paid. And then this guy down here wants paid.
Look how old those fucking people are that are there protesting for truck drivers. They were literally around when Henry Ford started rolling off Model A's. And now they're worried about modern truck drivers.
Overtime. As you can see, these are the faces.
Yeah, the camera's installed. I just haven't caught anything on it yet.
Of the
some deer and some possums.
Between the three of them, it's approximately 276 years old. And, yeah, that's who's out there fighting for us. Thank God all three of them plus the photo taker were there. And the cops are back there too to keep them
This last part's really funny. So the cops are back there too to keep them in line.
under control. That or give them walkers.
Give them waters.
Right here,
That's the funniest part.
Freight specialists and truckers, we are looking at the protest.
The cops are back there too to keep them under control. Or give them waters.
Washington.
It's pretty funny.
See, we have enforced 49 CFR 371.3 and all hours paid. And then this guy down here wants paid overtime. As you can see, these are the faces of the protest.
Walkers, Waters, I don't care. It's still funny.
The three of them, it's approximately 276 years old. And yeah, that's who's out there fighting for us. Thank God all three of them plus the photo taker were there. And the cops are back there too to keep them under control. That or give them walkers.
Walkers, you're right. And it makes sense because the next video is about walkers.
Listen, it is serious here. And we're looking to get a sponsorship, you see. We're looking to get ourselves a sponsorship because we're having a little problem when we go to Washington. See, most of our people are like over 110 years old, and we're looking for a walker sponsorship. Speed walkers, you know, those speed walkers. That way we can keep up with those politicians, see? They seem to be outrunning us as soon as the ice cream truck starts to jingle, you know, pulls up there.
He's a guy from Canada that used to be best friends with Trainwreck Travis and Liberty's Warrior.
So, that's what we're looking for. If anybody wants to sponsor us to Noah elders, the great elders from the top of the mountain, see? Hook us up with one of those walkers. Yeah.
That filter's fucking wild.
It is.
Anyways, it's funny. Oh, and Cam.
Right here.
He was best friends with Cam.
All of our freight specialists and truckers. We are looking at the protest in Washington.
Him and Cam were out catching ghost kitties or something. They had like this little ball that a cat would play with, and it lit up, and they were catching ghost cats. Ghost pussy.
You can see we have enforced 49 CFR 371.3 and all hours paid. And then this guy down here wants paid overtime. As you can see, these are the faces of the protest.
The tip of the spear.
It's approximately 200
face of the movement
years old. And yeah, that's who's out there fighting for us. Thank God all three of them plus the photo taker were there. And the cops are back there too to keep them under control. That or give them walkers.
It's pretty fun. It's a pretty funny video. Yeah, they founded the company GPP, which was Ghost Pussy Paranormal, and they found apparently some ghost cats. I'm not sure. I wasn't all about that. So we got some documents to read. Sorry I got started so late, but we do have some documents to read. They are the statements from the witnesses or from the victims of your boy Tim Ballard. Who is Tim Ballard? I think he's like a Jehovah's Witness that has something to do with like raising money to feed starving kids. I can't remember. Yeah, something like that. But anyways, we go down here and grab Exhibit A. I read Exhibit A last night, but we're going to reread it because we're going to read all 5 of them. And I feel like I should put them all together in one video. Let's get after it, wherever it's at. Somewhere down here. Tim Ballard, right-hand man to the movement to stop trafficking, was literally trafficking women and sexually assaulting them. Yeah, The Sound of the Lambs or something like that. Lambs of Silence. I can't. He did a movie somewhere. I didn't see it, I don't think. Either way, here we go. Exhibit A. Statements from WW. This is the one we said last night. No, I don't think that's it. Lamb chop, that might have been it. It had puppets in it, I'm almost positive. It didn't have anything to do with freedom. That sounds silly. On April 19th, 2021, WW reached out to Ballard via Instagram because she was dating a man that she thought was involved in trafficking. The sacrificing of the goats. That could have been it. WWW didn't know who else to turn to about her suspicions, but she trusted that Ballard and OUR were the right resources to report it, since they work with law enforcement to fight trafficking. Oh, The Sound of Music. That might have been it. That rings a bell, I think. That might have been it. I've heard of that before. On April 20th, 2021, Ballard responded via Instagram and invited W to his office in Lehigh, 525 Sunrise Way, to discuss her concerns. As W came into Ballard's office, she perceived that OUR employees were suspicious and leery of her. W gave Ballard information about the man she had been dating with whom she had growing suspicions. Ballard told W to give him the man's phone number, and he would give it to his guys to check him out. Ballard then said he noticed from W's Instagram profile that she was an actor. Ballard asked if W had ever considered going undercover. W answered no, but that she would definitely consider it. Ballard had W sign an NDA and told W how important it was that she never speak a word to anyone, not even friends or boyfriends, because people's lives are on the line. This is a recurring theme. Nobody can speak, because if you speak, everybody's lives is on the line, or if you do something like speak or tell or refuse to contribute, then you're not rescuing kids, and God wants you to rescue kids. Oh, by the way, Dr. J did do one thing before she broke my heart. She posted this, and this is the guy explaining why Tim Ballard may have been, remember where we parked, chat, okay? We're right after definitely consider it, okay? Remember where we parked. This guy has a theory that is something within the Church of Mormon that may be the reason that Tim Ballard was allowed to do all these crazy things, and the church didn't say. It's like double anointed or something, and basically like he's untouchable. He can do whatever he fucking wants after that point. But this guy's talking about it here.
Invitation. But, so what the second anointing is
second anointing.
Invitation. But, so what the second anointing is it's an invitation only temple ordinance, as I understand it, that when we go through our endowment that you and me both went through, we are put under covenant to God and promised all these blessings, become kings and queens and priests and priestesses in the next life, under covenant, dependent on our faithfulness. It's a conditional blessing, right? Yep. Or it's a conditional invitation, whatever you want to call it. The second anointing, from what I understand, is the realization of those blessings, to where it's not conditional. It's like they're sealed. It's done. You have those high celestial blessings.
So basically, like the first anointing is when you're like called to do your thing and you follow regular church rules. The second anointing, when you get to that point, it's basically like you've done everything. So there's no question about your character, your motivations, your morals. So, and not that they just say, okay, you can do whatever, you can fuck hookers, right? Basically, no one can question your judgment. So if you do go out and fuck hookers, it's because you were trying to bring them to church with you, or because, the prophet prophesied that you'd have to fuck this hooker, and 10 years from now, she's going to turn Mormon. So basically, it is a pass, but they always relate it back to something to do with the church, right? No one can question your judgment. You must have been doing this. You've already been greenlit by all the saints and angels and whatever, right? So you must have been doing it for a good reason. No one can question your judgment. The same way that, like, when Donald Trump says shit like, I could walk out on Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody in the face. And then I've asked that in my chat before, like, if Donald Trump was on live TV and shot somebody in the fucking face and killed them unprovoked, what would you say? And some people are always like, well, that guy probably deserved it, right? It was probably because he was attacking Trump. No, I just said it was unprovoked. No, that guy was probably a hacker, and he was gonna hack Trump's nuclear codes. I just said it was unprovoked. Like, it's that type thing. So when people say, like, he's out here fucking Mexican hookers, yeah, but he has to rescue kids.
Sealed upon you, guaranteed. And you cannot fall from that grace unless you either sin against the Holy Ghost or commit murder of shed innocent blood. Probably, I think that's probably the only things that can make you fall from that grace. So if And I can't say definitively that Tim had the second anointing, but I would be surprised if he didn't, the way he was talking. I mean, he talked to me about Elder Ballard giving him special blessings, saying, you wouldn't believe how this guy talks in these blessings with God. He'd say things like, counsel God, this is what Tim needs you to do. And he'd give him like a wish list of things that Tim needed. And so with how close the relationship was, I'd be surprised if he didn't have it, but I can't say definitively that he has. But what makes sense to me is if he had, then any sort of, I guess, sin, whether it's sexual or otherwise, is you no longer need the atonement of Jesus Christ to repent from, because you have a second anointing and you can't fall from that grace.
Except for murdering someone who's innocent or blaspheming, I think is probably the other one. This podcast is also linked. I think that video clip we just watched came from this podcast. Let me make sure that he's like wearing the same shit, right? Okay. So this is the podcast. We might go over it later, but it's like 2.5 hours long. But it says Rise and Fall of Sound of Freedom Hero. That's not the right title. Rise and Fall of Silent Lambs Hero, Insider Speaks Out. And the thumbnail says, I helped make Tim Ballard famous and regret it. Ryan Fisher's Untold Story. So this guy is Ryan Fisher. And there you go. We might go back over this, but like I said, it's 2.5 hours. I got a really shitty late start, and I promised I would read these documents. So we're back here. You guys remember where we parked? Ballard had W sign NDA and told W how important it was that she never speak a word to anyone, not even friends or boyfriends, because people's lives were on the line. He explained further the gravity and severity of what was at stake in order to protect women and children and the ops. W was not given a copy of this NDA. I don't know if it's illegal or like makes it void, but every NDA that I've ever signed, which is probably more than the average person, unless you're a QAnon podcaster, then you've signed every NDA that's ever been signed. But I've signed more than like a handful, and every one I've been given a copy immediately. A lot of times there'll be like a copy that signatures go on, and I already have a copy. And sometimes they want that copy signed as well to prove that it wasn't edited, past it. Sometimes they're unsigned copies, just like duplicates. Everybody in the room will have a copy. It's kind of weird that he didn't give her a copy, but maybe that's standard in some industries. I don't know. The industries I've worked in, you sign an NDA, you get a copy of it, because it literally outlines, like, you got to stay in between these. Like, you can't talk about this. You can't talk about that. You would need that to refer. Like, if you had to do an interview or you had to talk to somebody or you were thinking about writing a book, like, you would need that for a reason. I don't know. Ballard then proceeded to tell W that female operatives are crucial to OUR's work. Ballard told W about a tactic they use called couples ruse. Ballard explained they were running into problems on ops when male operators did not engage in sex acts. He said if a male operator don't touch the woman or children, the traffickers would figure out that it was a sting and would create danger for all. Even if we were following this premise that this is a real legitimate tactic, how did they figure this out? Because we didn't hear about a bunch of failed operations where they just like, we really need to start bringing women with us because I'm going to go fuck this kid now. Like, that seems strange, right? Ballard told W how the couple's ruse came to him by revelation from God, as there was no way he could have thought of up such a brilliant ruse. Ballard then told W that if she would act like a jealous girlfriend, then she could block for Ballard, and Ballard would block for her. Ballard explained to W that it was like a cock blocker. Just like a cock blocker, guys. A regular old cock blocker. Ballard expounded by saying that he would take women into couples massage parlors or strip clubs and act as kinky couple ready to do sexual and deviant things, but that there would be no kissing and no touching of genitals except for his arms around the woman's waist, maybe on your back pocket, etc. And that it would be super safe because there would be a team around the corner watching everybody's safety. Ballard explained to W that if she agreed to go on an op, she would be part of the communications by watching and reporting on activities surrounding the sting. Ballard explained to W that if she agreed to get, that's what I just read. Ballard told W that he preferred to hire actors because cops cannot act very well, resulting in traffickers not being fools. Ballard explained that traffickers can smell cops miles away. Ballard asked W what she thought, and she responded that she was on board because she was a rape survivor herself and felt strongly that she should help women and children. Ballard responding by asking, "You're a survivor yourself? Wow, that would be a powerful story," he also said. "I feel like you have to be hand selected from God because there are so many I can't trust. We have thousands of applications every week, but I can't just bring in anyone. To be honest, I felt pretty important and believed him." Ballard then instructed W to get training, and he would go over more details later. Ballard then told W that there was a fast-approaching operation and that he really needed someone quickly. On April 21st, 2023, Ballard put W in a text thread with Matt Cooper. Ballard texted W from a phone number that Ballard instructed her to label as Brian for safety purposes. Ballard then instructed W to introduce W to Matt Cooper and informed her that she was being considered for an ops position and that she should get a background check in order to attend a survivor's graduation. Ballard further stated that the ops team would meet that Friday around noon, where Ballard would run her through tacticals and finish conversations. On April 23rd, 2023, W attended a survivor's graduation. Matt Cooper, Coop, was there with Ballard and W. Ballard had told W prior that her op name would be Kelly, but then Coop, had introduced W as W. W was confused as she was afraid Matt Cooper had compromised the op, as Ballard had earlier stressed how serious everything was. W asked Matt Cooper if she was compromised because he had said her real name. Matt Cooper responded no and reassured her that she was safe. Ballard had told W to keep track of all her hours while preparing and working on the op. Ballard understood that W was a single mom at the time. Ballard asked W if she'd go on an upcoming op because the original girl could not go. W was moving by herself, so she explained that she could not go on an op on such short notice. Ballard responded by offering to pay for a moving van and movers to help so W could go. He also gave her money to buy name brand slutty clothes for the character. Brad had given her some cash for this. Brad also mentioned to W that he and Ballard thought that W would be a great speaker, and W responded that she had always wanted to be one. W felt honored by the generosity of OUR. Ballard told W that they would be talking a lot because they had to create a relationship to convince the traffickers that they were a couple, so they need to get to know one another. In some of their training, Ballard brought up the name of Hugh V, a person W actually knew prior to meeting Ballard, who was a huge part of W's healing from her own abuse. Hold on just a second. I was wondering if Hugh V was like a person who made videos or made posts or wrote articles or something. Ballard told W that Hugh was not to be trusted, along with many other people in his organization. W was sad to hear that about Hugh, but W trusted Ballard. Ballard told W that the other female operators would fall in love with him, so he had to change operators often. Ballard also asked W to never betray him. Ballard mentioned a journalist who wrote a negative article about him, who he said was just out to get him and the cause, but no one believed her, and he, quote, buried her. Ballard then told W that text messages needed to be sent via Signal, and everything, including messages via Signal or their regular phone messages, was to be deleted every night because it was imperative to the safety of the cause. Ballard warned that if anything got leaked, he could put people's lives at risk. On April 28, 2021, W received an email from Hugh V asking her about Ballard's relationship with her. W immediately told Ballard about the email. Ballard said his team was just looking out for Ballard and testing W's loyalty to Ballard, and that W passed. At one of the training sessions, Ballard was briefing W for an upcoming op. Ballard dismissed the others from his office, telling them he needed to prepare W for the mission. As W sat on the couch in Ballard's office, Ballard told W that he needed to get to know more about W so that they were comfortable with each other. Ballard asked questions about W's current relationship, her children, and the trauma abuse as a child. Ballard again said that it would make an amazing story. Ballard come over to sit by W and kept getting closer to W until at one point Ballard put his hands on W's leg and caressed her in her thigh. W immediately tensed up but thought Ballard was testing her and that she should just keep talking as if nothing were happening. W kept talking as Ballard stroked her neck. Ballard finally got frustrated that she wasn't responding to his advances and asked W, "Why are you not responding?" W responded, "Because I know you were testing me." Ballard said he fucked with their heads, dude. He fucked to the heads. Ballard said he needed to know if W was attracted to him. What the fuck are you talking about? I just did a show on Phil 2 nights ago. Go watch it on rerun, you stupid motherfucker. God damn. Retards in chat. I don't know how you guys fucking use a goddamn keyboard. Obviously, you don't understand caps lock or how to fucking spell, but somehow you just hit all the buttons and shit pops out. Dob. Fucking retards. Anyways, he fucked with these people's heads. They think everything's a test. They think they can only trust him. They can't trust anybody else. They can't do anything to take part in it. They gotta turn to him if anybody contacts them. They can't leak anything. They can't share anything. Yeah, it's all a big mind fuck that he's doing to these women. Fucking retards are like, why don't you go talk about this victim? We're talking about other rape victims tonight. If you want to watch a rerun of the show from 2 nights ago, go watch it. Jesus Christ. Anyways. Ballard said he needed to know if W was attracted to him. Ballard asked W if she was attracted to him, to which W said not in that way. Ballard asked how W could convince traffickers of the chemistry then. W told him she did not need to practice because that was what she was trained to do as an actor. Get in the character, win in role, but only on action and out on cut. W explained she never practiced chemistry or romance scenes privately outside of being on set. So she never practiced it privately outside of being on set. Of course, because no actor does, right? This isn't like a method actor trying to win like fucking a Peabody Award for being a super accurate victim of the Holocaust. You know what I mean? Like, no, this is probably why he tried to move away from actors and actresses. Because they're going to have this mentality. Like, I can act. I don't need to practice, being attracted to you. I can just act. That's what I do for a job. It's probably why I like taking regular people. Anyways, Ballard then stated that there was the practice he mentioned previously and that W needs to be attracted to him in order to convince traffickers that they were a kinky couple. Ballard told W that he must know she could pull this off, as a prior female operator went out on a mission once and couldn't perform. So all those donor dollars were wasted and the mission to save kids failed. At one point, W felt sheepish for thinking she knew better than Ballard, so she told him she would turn it on for just a moment for him to see that as an actor. She could turn it on and then turn it right back off. Ballard agreed. W approached Ballard in the hallway outside of Ballard's office and put hands on his chest and spoke to him seductively, saying she could turn it on if she needed to, and then pulled back immediately. But at this point, Ballard got excited and said, "Oh, good. Okay, you can do this." W asked Ballard if there were cameras in the building. He panicked and looked around and said, No, we're good. Ballard continued in his couples roost training, instructing W that from the moment they got inside the plane, headed to the location, inside cars, walking on streets, everywhere except for the safe house, they were supposed to be in character as a kinky couple because the traffickers have people watching them at every move. April 30th, 2021, I am looped into a group text, and Ballard tells W that the two of them need to go get spray tans as part of their cover. On May 3rd, 2021, W met at OUR's office with hair and makeup artists to teach W how to apply fake tattoos to Tim and herself for the upcoming Mexico op. On May 5th, 2021, OUR employee Mike Porrenta made all the arrangements for W to fly out to Dallas, Texas. W and Ballard stayed at a house in Irving, Texas so that they could meet with Glenn Beck before flying from DFW to Mexico the next day. Our OUR employees, David Jacobs, met Ballard and W at the Irving house and wrote a note to them that read in part, "Go get them, XOXOXO." At Glenn Beck's home, Ballard spoke about how he had to remove the cancer from OUR and that many were out to get him. Beck sympathized with Ballard, sharing his own experience about how people would try to get him and that he had hit rock bottom with people going through his trash. He told Ballard that he may go through that too. Ballard said he already hit rock bottom when he realized there were so many people out to get him, and he had to make all the changes in his company. On May 6, 2021, Ballard and W flew out to Mexico. Ballard went into immediate character from the DFW airport to Mexico. Ballard was all over W with his hands on her buttock and his hands wrapped through her legs while sitting on the airplane. Ballard and W finally arrived at a very large safe house that overlooks the ocean and has a private chef. The secondary team stayed in a second location. W had her own room and Ballard had his. The next day, while the chauffeur drove Ballard and W around, Ballard was in the back seat groping W. The windows were dark, but Ballard insisted they had to remain in character. On at least one occasion, Ballard's hand got quite close to W's groin area. W told him that he didn't have to be so close, so he pulled back. Ballard explained that they were going to find out to find massage parlors. W asked him how she could avoid having to get naked in those massage parlors. Ballard responded by telling her it would be fine if she stayed in her underwear. Ballard said W could lay face down on the shared massage table and he would lay face up. That way they could still talk to one another in their ears. W expressed concerns to Ballard, telling him that she knew the massage therapist would want her to take her bra off, which she didn't want to do. So she said her story would be that she had a boob job and she could not take her bra off for support purposes. Ballard assured W that he would help express that, as the escorts may be speaking in Spanish. Ballard is fluent in Spanish, but W is not. Ballard located a massage parlor and instructed the driver to drop them off. They were then taken to the back massage room where they undressed and got on the table. W was in a bra and underwear. Two women came into the room and Ballard started speaking to them in Spanish. The two women took their own clothes off, down to their underwear too, and started massaging W and Ballard. Ballard asked questions, which then led to talking to them about a party and him asking for frescas or young girls. Ballard instructed W that if the escorts got too close to touching them, the code word was "fuck me," to which it was W's job to convince the women that W needed to fuck her boyfriend and get the women out of the room. One of the massage girls undid W's bra, and W responded, "Oh, no, no," and told Ballard, whose op name was Brian, to tell the women in Spanish why she needed to keep her bra on. Ballard repeated what W said, but only in English, not Spanish, and the woman did not care. Ballard said the code word, and W immediately pretended to be jealous, telling the escorts not to touch Ballard. W next said the code word because one of the women went straight for W's crotch. Ballard did not respond to protect her, so W repeated again. Again, Ballard did not respond to protect her, at which point W understood that she needed to get the women out of the room or she may be compromised and was in extreme danger. As part of the ruse, W kissed Ballard's neck and rubbed his belly and told the women to leave as she needed to fuck her boyfriend. However, the women just stood back to watch. Jesus Christ. W rolled over on top of Ballard so that the women could see that she was serious, as W was very scared that the women would not believe them and leave her alone. W told them again to leave at this time with enough anger, that the women left. Once the women left, W realized she was topless on top of Ballard's chest. W immediately got off and got dressed. A trafficker had shown up and a conversation ensued. W and Ballard left the massage parlor and W immediately had a panic attack. Ballard told W, "You are burning up." W was burning up and was shaking. W could barely walk from the shaking due to what had just happened. Ballard gave her a few moments to breathe. Then they were off to the next parlor. Over the next 3 days, Ballard and W had similar experiences in massage parlors across Mexico. After one such sting in which W obtained some phone numbers of traffickers, Ballard screamed W's accolades in the car after, saying he couldn't believe what W was able to do, as she got so many phone numbers that would allow OUR to save so many children. W told Ballard that she was sorry about what happened in the first massage parlor, to which Ballard responded it was okay because he and his other operators would accidentally kiss because they were so in character. Accidentally kiss. Ballard also revealed that he would often sleep together in a safe house next to each other, snuggling, because the ops were so traumatic. Ballard said that sometimes things would happen in this couple's ruse and he would just have to go ejaculate as things got too steamy. W told Ballard, that's interesting, but that won't be me. At one of the parlors, a female trafficker and Ballard were talking about something in Spanish, to which a female came directly to W and grabbed her breast and crotch. W said the code word, trying to play it off, and looked at Ballard for a reprieve. Ballard just watched. At one point, said female trafficker brought up a younger female to take her clothes off down to her underwear and turn around for Brian to approve for an upcoming party. Ballard approved, and the young female was dismissed. The older female trafficker did not want to wait for any upcoming party and wanted to partake of W now. W immediately knew she was going to be raped if she didn't get out, as the female kept grabbing her so forcefully that W fell on the bed. W knew that she had to get herself out, so she made up a story that there was a meeting they had to go to. Ballard said, "What meeting?" W left Ballard and went outside. Ballard got upset with W, saying, "Why'd you leave? We were so close to getting information." W told Ballard she feared she was going to be raped and was upset that he didn't help her. Ballard told her he would never have let it go too far, to which W again felt bad for doubting Ballard, and she worried she stopped the opportunity for kids to be saved. When they were at the safe house in between these massage parlor missions, Ballard would answer his door in just his towel and still have her come in and talk about the op. Ballard kept saying, "You know I'm clean, right? I don't even get turned on by this stuff. You see, I don't even get a boner." What a weird brag. W asked Ballard why he still went on ops when he told everyone he was not doing them anymore. Ballard responded that Elder Ballard sanctioned the couple's ruse, and it was Ballard's calling to do ops. At one point, W had to go to shower and get ready for an op when Ballard said, "You can use my shower," to which W responded, "No, thank you. I've got my own." Ballard double-checked with her, saying he would leave the room, and she still said no. Later, while they were eating at the safe house, Ballard confided in W that things with Catherine weren't the best. W asked Ballard if Catherine knew about the couple's ruse, to which he said she did. W asked Ballard if she knew all the details, though, and he responded that she is such a saint, she does not ask questions, and she's willing to do anything to save the kids. W told Ballard that he should stop doing ops and be home with his family to heal, as his PTSD was very apparent and he needed to rest and just be with his family. The last night in Mexico was when Ballard took W to strip clubs. Prior to this night, W had expressed to Matt Cooper that she was concerned about Ballard. She confided a bit to him that Ballard had been distracted, worried about her betraying him the whole time, and didn't protect her. Coop listened to her and said Ballard did need some help, but that was the extent of it. Ballard told W that she was to block for Ballard, and the goal was to get some girls in the back private rooms to ask questions and get phone numbers. Coop, Matto, and George were all there as secondary in another part of the club. W was mentally, emotionally, physically compromised after what it took to get a couple phone numbers at this club. And she told Ballard she had to be taken back to the safe house. As W was leaving the sting, she observed George headed to a back room alone with one of the strippers for what was going to be a pleasure trip after the op. Ballard told W she had done an incredible job this trip and had done enough. After getting back to the secondary team's safe house, Ballard explained that W was done and had super successful trip, but that he and a couple others were going to go check out one more spot. They were gone for a few hours with no blocker and no comms. Matt O and a couple other secondary team members were with W and kept getting angry and worried, saying this isn't right. W warned Ballard that the type of conduct that she saw with George as well would take down OUR. W told Ballard, either you tell someone or I will. Ballard responded, "You can't do that to me," to which W said, "Watch me." The next day, Omar and Ballard had a private chat with W, thanking her for letting him know. Omar told W the rule was that no operator should operate without their blocker, and that can't happen. So he would take care of it. W also learned that DS was one of the other operators. W knew DS from her line of work and had a deep affinity for DS. When Ballard found out that W cared about DS, he told W that DS had crossed the boundaries and kissed him. Ballard told W that DS was in love with him and that she was the one that when he met W at the very beginning in David Jacobs' office, that he had explained was in love with him, and that's why they had to get new operators. When W got home, she immediately had nightmares and knew she was re-traumatized. She was also paranoid of being watched and saying anything about her experience with Ballard and her boyfriend at that time, her current husband now, and was very concerned for her. Ballard continued telling her that he needed her on the next stop and that he was super excited because it was this really cool place with an amazing house and boat. W told Ballard that she was re-traumatized and it wasn't wise for her to go on another op. Ballard said he would pay for her to go to his therapist in order to see if his therapist could help W be able to get back out there. Ballard told W that she made the most difference out of any of the operators. W went to see Ballard's therapist, KM. Ballard was pretty persistent about W coming back, even though she told him no several times. Ballard told her she could maybe do a secondary, but then after thinking about it, she said no to that too. Ballard then said, well, what if you become the female face of OUR? Ballard knew her dream was to be speaking on stages. She said, she said, oh my gosh, yes, I could still help the cause. Ballard helped the ruse by telling her that they needed to probably have better training for operators, so he was going to have further training for it and to watch for it. He said they could get footage, and since she had kicked ass on the undercover op and was a survivor herself, this would be a huge thing. Before the training, Ballard sent her a text in July 2021 telling her that he was pulling out of ops to be with his family. She told him that she was proud of him. He asked for replacement female operators for other operations, so she told him she may have someone and recommended DM. W went to OUR op training held in Salt Lake City as she believed Ballard and the organization were turning things around. They had the cameras follow her around a lot. She gave them an interview, and Ballard told them she would be the face for speaking. After this training, DM, who did not attend the official training, called W saying she needed to talk to W, but she couldn't talk over the phone. It had to be in person. She went to meet with Coop and Tim to be considered for the position of female operator, but things happened, and DM wanted to know if it was normal. W and others were told to not even talk to one another because of safety, so W knew why DM was nervous and scared to talk to her. DM told her that Tim had pushed her up against the wall and licked her stomach, and then went out on a fake op practice at a local strip club where he was taking pills while his son was there. DM thought it was strange and wanted to know if it was normal. That is when W snapped and realized this was not normal. W then started questioning her own experience. W then called Ballard and told him that she could no longer be a part of OUR, even as a speaker. Ballard was frustrated and sad and kept trying to get her to come speak for another year. Ballard also invited her to a separate private meeting that no one knew of, and he told W that he was starting to do his own ops. W didn't go and kept asking the status of the op they had gone on and if they had rescued any kids. Ballard kept telling W that it just takes time, but they were making progress. DM told W that she had verbalized to Ballard and Coop her boundaries, that she did not want to do things and didn't need to practice, and they dropped her. W wanted to tell Matt Osborne of her concerns at the training prior to this, but she thought she couldn't trust anyone. She felt so small compared to Ballard, as he had told her he would deny everything if she said anything and she would be buried. That's just the first victim statement. Jesus. Statement of DS. Why now? I feel compelled to participate in this lawsuit because no one else had my back when I needed it most. And the way I intend to right that wrong is to have my own back while simultaneously advocating for countless others who have been harmed while Tim continues to denounce the truth and skirt the consequences. This is not a matter of revenge, but a matter of justice and love. Allowing people to face the consequences of their actions is a true act of love, and that's how we learn. That's how we develop resilience, and that's how we wake up to the need to work on ourselves. That's from Dr. Nicole LaPera, the holistic psychologist. I don't know if I would have included, I would just said unknown. Unknown quote from someone. Sorry, I just got a message. I usually don't get messages in late, but I had to check that one. I could never have anticipated being part of a legal battle and have lived so that I wouldn't need to be. Even when I have been terribly wronged, abused, and robbed in the past, I have walked away quietly with my head high and moved forward in a different direction. You know, it's a very, very, very American thing to shun, attack, and ridicule people who are legitimately injured, but they want to sue. Like, I understand that there are some shitbags out there, like Mariah's dad, that she doesn't claim, literally sued every company he ever worked for. And he would live off settlements until he had to get another job. Then he'd work for him for a few weeks, then sue him somehow. But, like, it was, you know, the woman at McDonald's that got burnt by the coffee? That was all propaganda to make you think like, oh, duh, coffee's warm. I remember even as a kid hearing my parents joke about it, and I joked about it. Like, what kind of dumb bitch doesn't understand that coffee is warm? So they had to put a caution label. That was all propaganda, again, to make you hate people that are freeloading and suing people. And people feel like they needed to defend this. You know, the coffee that came out was like at 200 degrees. It gave her third-degree burns on both the insides of her legs, onto her groin area. She was in like an intensive care for weeks. It wasn't just like, oh, coffee's hot, duh. Like, it was 200-degree coffee that literally scalded her to the point where she had like almost $1 million in medical bills, right? Like, but we were fed this propaganda line to like, oh, this dumb woman doesn't know coffee's hot. Jesus. So yeah, there are shitbags that sue just to sue, but we also have like this framing that we should go after people who sue anybody, right? That we should attack people who end up suing places. I think she was awarded. The first time, so she had, let's see, here it is. This is a little side deal here. Liebeck versus McDonald's restaurant, also known as McDonald's coffee case, and the hot coffee lawsuit was a highly publicized 1994 product liability lawsuit in the United States against McDonald's restaurant chain. The plaintiff, Stella Liebeck, a 79-year-old woman, suffered third-degree burns on her pelvic region when she accidentally spilled coffee in her lap after purchasing it from McDonald's restaurant. She was hospitalized for 8 days while undergoing skin grafts, followed by 2 years of medical treatment. Liebeck sought to settle for McDonald's. All she wanted to settle was for $20,000, which was like her original medical bills after her insurance and stuff. All she wanted was $20,000, and they told her to get fucked. When McDonald's refused, Liebeck's attorney filed suit in the U.S. District Court for the District of New Mexico, accusing McDonald's of gross negligence. Liebeck's attorney argued that the almost 200 degrees McDonald's coffee was defective and more likely to cause a serious injury than coffee served at any other establishment, which generally served theirs under 130 degrees, right around 100 to 130 degrees. The jury found that McDonald's was 80% responsible for the incident. They awarded Liebeck a net of $160,000 in compensatory damages to cover her medical expenses and $2.7 million, which is $5.6 million today, in punitive damages, the equivalent of 2 days of McDonald's coffee sales. The trial judge reduced the punitive damages 3 times the amount of the compensatory damages, which totaled she only got $640. Even though the jury said she should get 2.7, she got $640,000 total. The parties settled for a confidential amount before an appeal was decided. So basically, she didn't even get that. So when you go up against a mega corporation, just because you win, doesn't mean shit. You know what I mean? It is, they will come out of the courthouse and say, okay, now what will you take? And you're like, I just won $2.7 million. They're like, no, we're going to tie this up in court for the next 20 years. What do you want to take? Right? And they ended up settling for less than, she was awarded $640,000. They ended up settling for less than that. The Liebeck case became a flashpoint in the debate in the United States over tort reform. It was cited by some as an example of frivolous litigation. ABC's News called the case the poster child of even the news companies were in on this propaganda bullshit. They called it the poster child of excessive lawsuits, while the legal scholar Jonathan Turley argued that the claim was a meaningful and worthy lawsuit. Ex-attorney Susan Saladoff sees the portrayal in the media as purposeful misrepresentation due to the political and corporate influence of McDonald's. In June 2011, HBO premiered Hot Coffee, a documentary that discussed in depth how the Liebeck case has centered in debates on tort reform. That's insane, dude. That's crazy. The Liebeck case is often cited in a misleading manner by proponents of tort reform who present, I hear this all the time. When people are talking about like, yeah, but we're just in a nation that likes to sue, right? You always, what about the lady that got hot coffee? But they don't even know the story. They didn't even know the fucking story. Who present an inaccurate or incomplete summary of the facts in order to falsely frame the case as frivolous litigation. ABC News called the case a poster child of excessive lawsuits. Jonathan Turley called it a meaningful and worthy lawsuit. McDonald's asserts that the outcome of the case was a fluke and attributed the loss to poor communications and strategy by an unfamiliar insurer representing a franchise. Liebeck's attorney, Reed Morgan, and the Association of Trial Lawyers of America defended the result in Liebeck by claiming that McDonald's reduced the temperature of its coffee after the suit, although McDonald's, in fact, had not done so. Detractors have argued that McDonald's refusal to offer more than an $800 settlement for the $10,500. So she asked for $20K. Well, first she asked for $10,500, but she ends up asking for $20K. I think they offered her $800. $800. She ended up dying back in like 2002 or something. The lady did. I remember when she died. She was like 90 something though. But yeah, she had to have skin grafts and everything. That'd be awful. That'd be fucking awful. I don't know what you liking hot coffee has to do with it. I could never have. Anyways, you need to check. Like, this person's already apologizing for being involved in a lawsuit. You probably need to get the facts before you dog somebody for just suing somebody, right? Even if you hear it in the media, even the media was manipulated, and so was everybody else. Basically, I don't know anybody at the time or any time around this that referenced this case and knew that she had skin grafts, was in the hospital for over 2 weeks, like all that shit. I could never have anticipated being part of a legal battle and have lived so that I wouldn't need to. Even when I had been terribly wronged, abused, and robbed in my past, I've walked away quietly and held with my head high and moved forward in a different direction. In this case, I cannot in good conscience or integrity walk away or hide, though I would far prefer to if I didn't feel this responsibility. I'm a lover of truth and will use it to protect and defend others at all personal costs, with the same passion for the cause for which I was willing to risk my life. Going undercover to expose human traffickers, I now lay down my personal comfort, safety, time, relationships, and reputation to voice my experience and allow the truth to unfold. The timing of Tim's behavior coming to light is exactly as it had to be. Anyone who has previously tried to open the curtain has been crushed. I was told I would be as well. Those who have revealed truth at the expense of Tim's image were labeled as traitors to the good cause and to Tim personally, who had enough clout and devotees that he is often revered as infallible and has proven to be invincible to date. I was told this, quote, nobody mom with 4 kids from Utah, end quote, wouldn't be considered credible. To the extent that I could speak and be heard, I always have and will. I began speaking out about the mistreatment of operators in April of 2022 after a traumatizing operation. When I spoke to Tim about it, I immediately began working with OUR executives to create change and care for operators. Based on what I outlined, OUR offered me a position to oversee operators, but it never fully materialized. They offered the other one a speaking role. This says, and Brad loves your new role. He got it right, Basil, and sees the urgency. Spoke with him today, right away. It is urgent. That's awesome. It's so needed, especially with more and more recruits. Agreed. We need to find more dudes. I'm the only one I trust right now. The others don't get it. And this is between her and Tim. Within a few months, I learned that Tim was even more mentally and morally degenerate than I had been aware and had since abused other operators. A few of us proceeded carefully as outsiders, insiders to put an end to Tim's behavior and ability to do harm, while safeguarding ourselves and the cause we supported. In October 2022, I personally experienced what I believed to be criminal behavior and received Tim's backlash when I called him out. I also informed Coop about it. So this is the same guy, Cooper, the guy on the board, right? In April 2023, I received information that another female operator had filed a claim for sexual misconduct. OUR began an investigation, and each woman willing to testify did so with great hesitancy, intentionally and cautiously acting in integrity to protect the organization, to prevent the cause from being publicly tainted, and Tim's public reputation as the face of OUR. The concluding report was detailed and indisputable enough that the board unanimously agreed Tim had to step down. The board, stacked with Tim's family and close friends, reached a settlement that concerned many of us since it allowed Tim to separate without assuming full personal accountability. So a lot of these people didn't even want to sue, but once they were told about this, there was one person that was filing. Then they basically interviewed all of his couples ruse people, and they're like, oh, we're going to let him step down on his own and start a new company, but we're not going to publicize any of this. That's when a lot of them come forward. That's why we started out a case that had like one person, then 3 people, then 5 people, and there's more people attaching themselves because they're figuring out they're letting him get away with it. It's one thing if they didn't know and people didn't want this, like, tarnish him or whatever, but now it's tarnished, and they're just gonna let him get away with it. Reached a settlement that concerned many of us since it allowed Tim to separate without assuming full personal accountability or giving him any impetus to receive the help necessary for behavioral change. As predicted, Tim was instead emboldened to continue his destructive path through new avenues and funding while publicly slandering those he had victimized. The board of OUR failed in its responsibility to uphold its mission and values regardless of status, influence, or fear tactics. We warned OUR's attorney that failure to hold Tim accountable would cripple the efforts and intent of anyone sincere about protecting those who had been harmed and silenced in the hands of predatory, lucrative, dangerous men. This company is not about protecting children or victims or people who've been trafficked or people who've been raped or sexually assaulted. It's about protecting Tim at this point because Tim is the face that brings the money in. In the interest of and protection for all involved, we made every effort to maintain silence to the press and public regarding the specifics of Tim's behavior and names of women abused. Despite our efforts, the press eventually got word of the investigation and drew it to the public attention. Tim had not indicated a Senate run until, conveniently, the day before the press printed the leak about the wrapped investigation into sexual misconduct. Tim malevolently linked his political announcement with allegations investigated and verified long before, inciting public anger and demand for Tim's victims to step forth and defend ourselves, which has led to further victimization, especially without the resources for personal and or legal protection. I have never wanted to disappear from my life this badly. It has been inexplicably debilitating to be so vulnerable, unsafe, and uncertain. And this is coming from a woman who dines with traffickers and cartel with intent to betray them. Rather than taking accountability or humbly making amends, Tim blamed his victims of attempting to ruin him without cause. Through his denials, Tim has divided families and friends, church members, and political allies. Any man who has left devastation and destruction in his wake and continues to vehemently lie and slander should be compelled to make recompense when he has refused to do so voluntarily. We should make him do recompense when he can't do it on his own. Tim has spent years in luxury, traveling in fame and power, living out his delusional and sexual fantasies, while people he has used to get there remain unprotected, afraid, financially ruined, and struggling to survive on multiple fronts. Though to those who naively excuse Tim's atrocious behavior as a matter of consent, of simply walking away, I am glad for your good fortune of never being lured into an abusive relationship. When it comes to understanding the extent of predatory behaviors and grooming, the issue of consent is irrelevant. The very definition of grooming is the process of securing a target's trust and manipulating that to get them to agree to things they would never otherwise consider. Again, grooming is setting them up to do things that are outside of what they would normally do. He probably couldn't go and just grab one of these women by the pussy the first time he met them. But he, just like we saw the mind change with her where she was like sorry and thought she had ruined this and felt bad for questioning Tim, by the time it gets to the point where he wants to put hands on them, they're in deep. That's what master manipulators do. They get you to conform to their beliefs and tactics, making the absurd seem normal and you seem absurd. Did I know at the time that I was being manipulated or lied to? Of course not. Did I know he was doing the same thing with other women? Of course not. He had convinced me, as I now know, he convinced each of them, that I was the only one he could trust to operate with him. I was the only one he could see things as they really were. Who could see things as they really were. I was the only one he knew would not permit him to cross boundaries. The only one who could be trusted to protect him, even from himself. I was the only one whose perspective he valued. You see this a lot of times in weird abuse cases where it's almost like they try to convince you that they're a danger to themselves and you've got to be here so I don't, so I don't burst into flames. You know what I mean? So I don't destroy myself. You got to be here. And you can't leave me because that's sentencing me to this like horrible travesty. So you got to stay here through it all. And I make mistakes, but you got to keep coming back. I was the only one whose perspective he valued. I was the only one to whom he had felt a spiritual connection. I was the only one who could be as convincing as I was in the role I played. I was the only one who he was sure would not betray him. Tim made me believe I was so special to him with Academy Award-winning performances that I was the golden standard among operators called by God for this specific time. I still want to believe that I was. Maybe that calling was to eventually expose the patterns that have hurt countless people and to pressure him into his own recovery. This continued, love bombing, cemented in me a desire to do whatever he needed for the cause of saving children since I believed I was a rare operator who could. As I now know, he was grooming others with the same praise and placing a heavy feeling of trust in their unique relationship. I worked closely with trafficked women who didn't know they were trafficked. Tim can tell you specifically how their pimps lay it on so thick, telling them that they have the option to leave, but they know well the repercussions if they try. Was it consensual? No. That's what grooming is. It's all of what takes place outside of and surrounding the very moment that you're acting in the situation you're being prepared for. It's the ideas, justifications, lies, and threats that convince you it's worth anything and everything you're doing. It's the level of close connection that he repeatedly insists you have. It's the trust he instills in you and the secrets he'll share so that you'll trust him back. It's the understanding of the fragility of the relationship and the situation and ramification that form a brainwash bond to ensure, even when he tells you that you don't have to do what you're not comfortable with, you do. And you need to get comfortable with it real fast. It's the insistence that he trusts your spiritual level and intuition to guide him, effectively shifting to his victim a false power, security, and responsibility to protect the predator and make sure that he is never hurt or betrayed by you or anyone else. It's the continued reminder that you're in a life and death situations which could compromise your personal safety as well as that of countless others. Oh, now she calls me a brat. Right in the middle of a show, too. I might break down right here, Dr. J. Elizabeth Smart has reported that occasionally people will slide in the comments to her, such as, "You and I both know you could have left if you wanted to." These insinuations are tormenting for victims of abuse or anyone thrust in a situation to have to prove themselves. Nobody deserves for me to explain the extent of what I endured so that they can judge and jury me. Only me and my God can sort this out mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. I understand now it could take the rest of my life to process and understand the lasting effects. People who have never experienced what I have experienced have no place to weigh in on the credibility of my pain. Damn. The marriage is a front. I don't know. This is not about consent. Consent means getting what you sign up for. This battle is about not getting what we signed up for. This is about having taken unimaginable risk and made enormous sacrifices, not for truth and freedom, but for lies. This is about being conned, gaslighted, and manipulated into believing we were doing something noble when we were doing little more than providing a sick man an ego boost, a power grab, an endless well to satisfy his selfish fantasies. This is about requiring Tim to take accountability for his wrongdoings and to stop profiting by exploiting us and others. Damn, that was a fucking solid opening statement. So he claims he was in the CIA. He's never produced. So you can't call the CIA and ask if somebody's in there. In fact, The only way to prove that somebody's in the CIA is if they produce the documents themselves. And there's no rule against that, right? If you claim you're a CIA agent, you can get documents and produce that you were in the CIA for whatever time period and your occupation. The CIA will not give those out. Unless it's been years and years and years down the road. He's never produced any documentation. Now, he was with the DHS, Homeland Security. And it seems like he was there for a couple years. But like where he plays an agent on the border, that wasn't even his job. That wasn't even his. He was like at a desk. Like the whole movie's a fucking lie. If you ever watched the movie. Yeah, he had a desk job. I first met Tim Ballard while working on a film project in 2020 I'm not saying he's not in the CIA. I'm saying he's had ample time. He used to claim that he was a CIA agent, an asset, an agent, a secret agent. When people called him out on that, now when you ask him, oh, you were in the CIA, and he says not one of the cool jobs, though. But he's had ample opportunity to produce documentation, like years to produce. Hell, I can even prove I was a fucking contractor. Like, come on. You had years to produce it, and he hasn't. Nothing. I first met Tim Ballard while working on a film project in 2020, during which he spoke about the power of prayer. I left that day a strengthened testimony of prayer and determination to pray more specifically with greater faith. A year later, I was working on the set again with Tim. He remembered me from our previous encounter and asked, "What's your story?" I gave him some milestones of my personal journey, including how I returned from living in Asia and divorced after my husband had fully relapsed into sex addiction. Tim, I would love to know. I'm not trying to be mean to the victims here. I would love to know what a devout Mormon who is still like this brainwashed with Mormon shit thinks sex addiction is. Well, I saw that he went to Pornhub once. He's an addict. Pornhub is my homepage. Okay? That's what happens when you open Chrome. Get out of here. Tim then showed me a video with a lady he had just rescued from Thailand and said that because we're not sex addicts, a line that I kept on replaying in my mind every time I doubted, they could go into dark places and fight those who promulgate the very filth that had caused me such devastation. I felt like he was literally fighting on my behalf. When filming was complete, he said, you're a hair and makeup artist. Can you do tattoos? I told him I could. And he asked me if this is that tattoo photo with him on the couch with a tattoo above his dick and stuff. That's crazy. Can you do tattoos? I told him I could, and he asked me if I could also bleach his hair platinum to create a cool SoCal look. He explained he was going on a mission with a fake girlfriend the following week and needed help creating their costumes, then suggested I could help with the disguise as well. She was a police officer and needed some feminine refinement, her makeup done, and help with her hair. Tim suggested it would be great if I could go down to Mexico with him to keep the tattoos looking fresh, because sometimes on missions they start to fade, and then it puts him in great danger. He looked at David, who had come on set with Tim, and said, remember that when we were on the op and my tats started to fade? That was scary. He asked for my number, if I had a valid passport, and if I would... Do you have your shots? Do you have your passport, baby girl? And if I would be available Saturday to get him ready. He said they have the supplies and everything already, since he had an appointment with another hair and makeup artist. He would call her off and get the products from her so I could apply them. He said the other artists lined up didn't have a valid passport, and because of the COVID delays, it was almost impossible for her to renew. So she wasn't able to travel with him. Then we get Tinsley Transfers. That's tattoo brand. I love that you can be a traveling hair and makeup operator. The places we go are often super dangerous and cartel controlled, so we need to be able to maintain disguises. Send any pics you find. So that's between her and Tim. He later texted to work out the details for meeting up to apply his tats and bleach his hair. He asked if I would ever consider going out as an operator, mentioning the possibility of having me pose as his girlfriend and testing my comfortability with that. He said he thought I would be really good, and it would make things easier for him. He wasn't really attracted to his other operators and how that could throw off the operation because their relationship isn't believable. He told me about an operation where he was coupled with a burly female Mexican and had to abandon the operation entirely because he couldn't even fake it with her. It says all that crap, all that responsibility crap, I think. Let's get some more thoughts on Teton's placement for me and also the girlfriend who will be meeting me in Mexico City. Or let's assume you end up on an op. Where would be placed tattoos? I was talking to blank UC partner for this week, and she said she had no idea where we should place her tarts. Wow, he texts about as good as fucking old Burt Lynch. I told Tim I wasn't sure if I could play that part, knowing what it would require of me, how safe it would be, how it might affect me mentally, what I would need to say and do to keep our cover and not screw it up, etc. Tim assured me there wasn't anything to worry about as he would cover for me and do all the talking. It was best for me to be a quiet, reserved cock blocker. Ollie would be good at this job. That would be my principal role. Protect Tim at all costs. I often told people I was essentially Tim's bodyguard with the purposes of protecting both him and Catherine via protecting their relationship from sex workers, which I believed I could do well because I'm firm in my boundaries, integrity, and intent. I was thinking whatever assessment scenario, you don't really need to know the lines or worry about talking much. I will handle all that. The key to UC undercover is to create a character that is a version of yourself. I was extremely excited about being given the trust and chance to participate in something I felt passionate about and could make such a direct impact, but I was very hesitant about the role. What a heavy responsibility for me to do things just right with our lives on the line and no experience in how traffickers work or what exactly I was supposed to do and how that might affect me in the long run. I told him I was willing but unsure if I was the right fit. He said he would start out super slowly, just holding hands around town and such to see if I felt comfortable. That seemed innocuous enough. I could handle that. Tim asked me to pray about it to see if it was something I felt good about and that we would talk in more detail on Saturday. I had many questions but couldn't believe the opportunity. Later that week, Tim told me he knew when we first speaking that he had received the divine impression that he was supposed to ask me about being an operator. This is the same guy who had strengthened my faith in prayer, and I easily trusted he could have received that revelation from God, and I believed it myself. My close friend reaffirmed that I was absolutely perfect for this role, saying of my personality type that we are the ones who want to save the world and don't want anyone to know about it. Yeah, you got it. We met up in an OUR office that Saturday and were initially with Coop and a few others who had brought in supplies and Tim's wardrobe for the op. The others eventually left, and me and Tim alone as I worked on his disguise. He seemed genuinely interested in knowing how I felt about life, the gospel, my situation, being single, and my perception of him and the works he does. Tim inquired about my sexuality and my spirituality. He was especially curious about how I, as an active member of my church, would see going in on these missions and playing the part. We had a lengthy discussion about what actions would be justified by God in this work. Throughout the afternoon and evening, he was impressed that I got it and was willing to do whatever was required for the cause and still feel strongly that it would be in keeping with my standards, since my highest standard is to sacrifice everything necessary for the Lord and his purposes. And I could conceive of no greater purpose than to free God's children in captivity. I was increasingly willing to participate without question of personal cost. For the next several hours as I worked, Tim began to tell me more about the tactics they use to keep their cover on operations. I had been aware of his close association with Elder Ballard, so it seemed natural when he told me that they met on a regular basis to receive blessings and discuss OUR proceedings. Tim told me of the time he told Catherine he couldn't do ops anymore, that the thought of descending into the filth made him sick. Then he received a revelation of using a girlfriend relationship, later deemed the couple's ruse, as a cover. According to Tim, He presented the plan to Elder Ballard, who thought it was a brilliant and specifically sanctioned the strategy. I could see how going undercover as a couple could be valuable, so it made sense that it would have come from the apostle of the Lord. I asked various questions about what my role would require. Would I need to drink alcohol, which I've never done? No. Tim said he never has to drink. He's really good at faking it and told me some of his tricks. Would I have to swear, which I also didn't do? Yes. I could practice it. That evening, Tim asked me if I had practiced saying the F word in the mirror. Fuck out of here. Fuck out of here. What was my personal risk? Would I ever be in a situation alone with traffickers or where another man would be expecting me to be sexual with him? Tim responded that our roles were to protect each other from exactly that. So we would only need to be sexual with each other and only to the extent necessary to the situation. Of course, we would abide by strict standards and need to be able to both connect and trust each other. Tim confided in me many secrets, like that he had just gotten a full body wax for the first time and asked if I ever had, saying it's so much more appealing and he wishes Catherine would. Damn. Damn. You need some help? I'll pick them up. Do you have someone consulting on clothing and fashion? I will bring some clothes to show you. Would love your help. Did Matt get you the tattoos? I'd love to know your plan for placement. I'm 100% wax, so my whole body is the canvas. Damn. He told me to go shopping and get sexy clothes so we could test it out this week if we got the chance. We were in frequent contact throughout the weekend. He asked me to send shots of the sexy clothes I got and screenshot tattoos and placements I was considering. Plans changed and I was asked to leave Monday instead. This would give us more time to practice. Tim asked if I had any concerns and I told him I had plenty, so we planned to discuss them while we were down in Mexico. He picked me up from the airport in Mexico City alone with a driver who I assumed only spoke Spanish so we could speak openly, confidentially on our long drive to the home where we would be staying that first night. I shared both my written and mental lists of questions. My greatest concern was for Catherine and how this worked with their relationship, since the whole point of going in as a pretend couple was to safeguard his relationship with his wife by preventing him from having to do heinous, how does he say it? Heinous acts with victims of trafficking. I wanted to know how he had been able to keep emotionally stable and not blur the relationships. He assured me that this is the best thing he could do for his relationship. Catherine, he sells this story like, man, you know, I got to go all over the world, flying first class, you know, these condos on cliffs on the beach with private chefs, hooker and blow. It's just horrible, dude, but somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to do this. He assured me that this is the best thing he could do for his relationship. Catherine knew it too. She helped choose me. He said that they always decide together who should go on these operations, who fits the part, legitimate partner for him, and with the right look, height, and spirit. He said he had shown Catherine my picture and she felt strongly about me, agreeing I was the one. As for making sure the role play doesn't turn into real play, Tim said there were strict rules. No kissing on the lips, because that makes it too difficult to create real attachment, not to create real attachment. No undressing or touching private parts. No texting, calling, or continuation of role outside of the ops. These stated standards helped me feel so safe about keeping that distinction, and I was thrilled to know that he took this seriously for my protection as well. Apparently, a previous operator had insisted on calling him and trying to see him after the op because she got too connected and couldn't let him go. He tells every girl that. He admittedly reminded her that they weren't in a real relationship. He couldn't work with her anymore after that. He told me about how he had another female operator, big-time actress. We were in a situation where they were staying with a trafficker who brought into the bedroom 10 to 12 minors to dance for them and sex play. To avoid minors, the actress and Tim lied on the bed pretending to make out and have sex, complete with fake orgasms and shower afterward, to convince the trafficker they had actually had sex. After playing the role, the woman was so legitimately horny that she had insisted on kissing him on the mouth, saying that it was not fair to get her so worked up and then leave her hanging. Tim was furious and reminded her of her place. Because of that, he could never work with her again. She was so upset at not being included in future ops. The following year, Tim told me he was considering having that operator come on another op with us, and ultimately did, because she now has a boyfriend and is promising she's in a more stable place and wanted to prove she could handle it now and pleaded for another shot. So he dogs this woman, then brings her back. The way Tim verbally attacked previous operators and people who betrayed him, which meant anyone who stood up to him, including the CEO and other directors, or women who dared question him on ops, was a regular lesson on how I was expected to behave in order to work with him. And I took note. Initially, the expectations of her conduct were not printed, but Tim took a video of us after the op for both of our protection. He had learned this the hard way because he had been accused in the past of acting inappropriately. Tim recorded that I had treated him appropriately and with respect and asked me whether he had done the same. In time, Coop wrote up and asked for signatures calling in a couple rules agreement. Notice Tim's signature was not required. This same agreement I read the other night. I can read it again, though. It's a new video. No, this is civil. All this is civil. The couples ruse is a cover for status and cover for action technique employed by OUR undercover operators. It will require a male-female pair posing as a couple under a false pretense that they were romantically involved. The couple will create the appearance of being romantically involved as they deem appropriate. The couple's ruse will be used by OUR operatives to infiltrate human trafficking criminal networks. The operators will use their status as a couple to engage traffickers and trafficking victims without abusing victims or engaging in harmful illicit activities where male operators would normally be expected to do so. The couple's ruse has proven effective in allowing OUR operators to gain access and intelligence into trafficking organization. Limitations. The undercover operators, Tim Ballard and Blank, will not and have not engage in the following acts with each other during the operation in Cancun, Mexico, Cozumel, Mexico, and surrounding areas of 6/19/2021 to 6/24/2021. Kissing on the lips, touching, or exposing private parts, including breasts and genitalia. Acknowledgement. By signing this agreement, you acknowledge you understand the couple's ruse, its limitations, and that both persons participating in the couple's ruse will not violate and have not violated the limitations of the couple's ruse as defined in this agreement. So it's basically rape. He's claiming it's all bullshit, but he could definitely be brought up on criminal charges. There was a criminal investigation into him and his operation and monies and different things. And suddenly Sean Reyes talked to the county prosecutor, and 2 days later it was dropped. All of it was dropped. But right now, all of this is civil. And it says OUR operator printed name, OUR operator signature, witness printed name, witness signature, but there's no place for Tim to sign. It's just everybody else. We arrived at the home of a wealthy politician where we would finish getting ready and stay the night. Tim had attended to most of my concerns, and now it was his turn. He told me how risky the whole situation is. More than just my life would be in danger, which he didn't seem to take seriously, and in time it would be little more than a joking conversation about how we would die, and that, in fact, he said he thought dying on operation would be a cool way to go. He was taking a very serious risk by bringing me along. He told me how important it was that I never say anything about what we're doing because it could literally ruin him. He seemed distressed, and as he asked, can you imagine what the response would be if you told people I went on an op with Tim and he was all over me or anything like that? I repeatedly assured Tim I would never, ever say anything. He expounded that if I ever talked about what we were doing, he would have to deny it. I told him I understood. Tim continued talking about how it would appear to people who wouldn't understand, and I fervently agreed it could easily be misconstrued. Tim drilled in my mind that he would have to use every resource he had to fight anything negative I might say about him, and that of course he would be sided with. I knew that. So he's already setting this up before he's even done really anything wrong. Even though he's kind of alluded to some shit he's doing wrong, he hasn't really crossed that line more than just being a creep. But he's already setting it up. If you say anything, I have to deny it all. You know, people wouldn't understand. I've got all these resources. Everybody's going to be on my side. Everybody wants to see this. You don't want children to go unrescued, right? So we got to save me. We got to save OUR. We got to do that. We have to deny everything. I'm just telling you. Even if you tell people, I went on an operation with Tim and he was all over me, I have to deny that. He's already setting that shit up. No one said he would go to jail if it's civil. That's the reason I corrected that it's civil. Tim drilled into my mind that he would have to use every resource he had to fight anything negative I might say about him, and that, of course, he would be sided with. I knew that. It didn't matter. I was resolved that I would never betray him. No one can say what the federal case may or may not be. I have no idea. It's you can't guess what if the FBI's even look into it or not. By this time, my heart was aching at the thought of my eyes. By this time, my heart was aching at the thought, and my eyes welled with tears. I told him I could never, ever say anything that would hurt you or the cause. That would be sacrificing everything I believe in, everything important to me about my own good character and all the good that OUR had done. It would be sacrificing the lives of innocent victims that I am willing to lay my life on the line to rescue. That would be so devastating to me personally that I would rather die than falsely accuse him. Tim committed to me, saying he had no doubt that I was sincere and trustworthy. I trusted him too, just by virtue of him being Tim Ballard. I only began to question Tim's claims when he needed constant reassurance that we weren't doing anything wrong. At the time, he was still seemingly concerned about compromising the temple covenants he made with his wife. I found it extremely odd that he worried so frequently about whether we were acting appropriately, and specifically asked me to confirm that we were in the right to be playing our roles. He worried out loud that he could not cheat on Catherine. His concern caused me, as a natural comforter, to engage regularly in his pattern of conversation. And here's a conversation. You received the idea of going in as a couple by revelation and immediately knew it as the answer you had been seeking, right? It was confirmed by Elder Ballard, right? And so basically, this is what he wants to say to her. This is a tactic, okay? What he wants to say to her is like, this was handed to me from God. Elder Ballard approved this. My wife knows about it. Everybody. So it's fine that we do this. But instead, he uses some reverse psychology and is like, this is good, right? You understand this is all right, right? So she says, you got this from God. Your wife knows about it. Elder Ballard knows about it. Like, he's twisted this shit up. Crazy. And by going undercover as partners, we're protecting each other's chastity as well as preventing those we engage with from having to perform sexual acts, right? Your wife was just as enthusiastic about this ingenious way to protect you, right? We were carefully selected to save lives in a unique way that God has trusted us to do, right? It's a righteous cause and calling that came directly from heaven, right? Then we have no reason to be concerned. We can remain in the peace and faith that we have been and will be guided by the Lord. What I didn't understand then was the real reason for Tim's constant concern and need for reassurance. He was behaving with impure intent. He used me to comfort him and regularly reaffirm the righteousness of our roles and behavior. Doing so kept me lodged in a belief that God condoned anything we needed to gain the trust of human traffickers and other dangerous or evil people, while simultaneously keeping ourselves safe physically and spiritually. While I see how all that could be true at times and spiritually and scripturally spiritually justified, I don't believe it is in Tim's case. During the past couple of years, I've witnessed firsthand Tim's degeneration into moral decay, mental illness, and harm to himself and countless others. Over the course of our many ops, Tim touched me repeatedly, trying to create a sexual connection by the words he spoke and the ways he touched. He was constantly filling me out and trying to turn me on as well. Tim frequently asked about my sex life, what most arouses me, whether I masturbate, what I'm willing to do with my boyfriend, etc. Tim also admitted to some jealousy about guys I dated and feeling rejected when I didn't respond to his touch as expected. Most of these touches were unnecessary, other than to create chemistry, because we weren't with traffickers or in settings trying to fool anyone. It was often while we were traveling alone, staying in a private place. How's your boyfriend? Progress? I thought maybe you meant Sister Chi. Haha. not my boyfriend, but he's a good guy. It's probably so hard having to compare every guy now with Brian Black, that sexy beast, which is his code name. Hi, I'm going to start bugging you every day as we prep to make sure we are all connected. Any concerns, thoughts, ideas? If we have to go back to desire, you good? Tim spoke often about his disconnects in the relationship with Catherine, Tim's wife. And I became a crutch for him to confide in and offer advice. It was often in regards to his sex life and wanting her to think more openly and be more exploratory. She was apparently not willing to wax or have oral sex. And I'm really good, he said. Tim frequently asked with bewilderment, why are you still single? On the first mission, he said, if anything happened to Catherine, I'd marry you. He really pressed to know if I would feel the same. I told him, we're not going to have this conversation. On another occasion, almost a year later, he said, if I was single, I would marry you. One of the donors with us on a separate trip mentioned that he had said this about the Ukrainian operator as well. And clearly, Tim said it to blank, then denied it and made horrible accusations about her wanting to marry him. There was no care or training of operators during these missions. Not before, not after. I would arrive home, useless for my kids and family and work, and until I could not process what had just happened. When I broke my foot on a training in Budapest and was not able to go on ops for a while, I lost that revenue stream as well as the ability to run my home and business. Being unable to walk was financially devastating. There were many other times of team disorganization and neglect, including when another female operator and I were left at a large home in Mexico all night, unprotected and forgotten by anyone else on the team. She left the next day, but still no one came for me. Fortunately, Tim and a couple others stopped back at the house to grab something they had forgotten. They were completely surprised I was still there. Damn, that's got to be scary. After he's told you all about the cartel and it's controlled and... Damn. On the ops, I was an afterthought. Like I wasn't really supposed to be there. I felt like I was risking and sacrificing for something that was becoming clearly about creating a story and not about putting together strategies to rescue. Eventually, Tim began to say our responsibility was to be storytellers. And man, could he spin up a story. No one seemed to need or care about the intel we gathered. My experience and perspectives didn't have a landing place. No one would know who I had spoken with in the places we visited or what I had seen and heard. Exactly, because he went there to party. If they happen to see somebody that looks underage at the same time, cool. But he went there to party. He's not going to ask you, like, what's everything the bartender said to you when you ordered a drink. He was there to fucking party. I didn't know if any of our efforts or supposedly valuable information we gained had led to anything worthwhile. Tim spent very little time explaining the missions, targets, or victims, and an excess amount of time discussing all things sexual. I never really knew what we had actually accomplished other than achieving chemistry and being convincing to usually no one in particular. Tim also became increasingly sexually perverse and aggressive. At least twice I was afraid when he was on top of me, dry humping on a bed. We were alone in a hotel room the first time he did this, after which he went in the bathroom and masturbated. On another occasion, I was scared and unable to tell him as he had become aggressive, grinding, determinedly trying to come. When I tried to move away, he pulled me back under him. That's fucked up, dude. As we were preparing for an operation and staying in Miami, Tim wanted time to practice and reconnect since it had been a while. One evening, he became demeaning and insistent that I meet him at the hot tub. I met him there late at night alone when I would rather have gone to bed, but knew he would be upset if I refused. Tim began telling me all about the tantric massage that he and another operator experienced in California. He said he had learned a lot and was excited about what she could do with it, I'm assuming what he could do with it in his marriage. Or maybe, I don't know. Tim had learned some techniques in tantric that he wanted to show me. He said, I'm going to do something. I promise I won't touch you. Trust me. He moved his hands up between my legs and pressed his fingers just behind my vagina, tapping firmly 6 times, which he explained awakens the sexual chakra or something to that effect. See, one of these Chinese massage parts, like at Tsuko, they put some type of devil sex magic on him, and that's what opened. He used to be a good guy before that. Then he turned on all his chakras and shit. It wasn't even his fault. He frequently talked about doing tantric massage with him and other more intense practices than we had done previously to level up our game, insisting that undercover work was a perishable skill. We can sleep on the plane. So what time do I get to your house? Tantric Massage, Florida, Fort Lauderdale. This is the kind of thing I was telling you about. Let me know what you think. Awesome. Erotic Tantric Goddess, Miami Beach, Florida. This practical exercise may be good fit to prep for undercover. Check it out and check your gut on it and let me know. This one is way cheaper. And I can't quite tell what the tantric experience is like from the site, but as long as it keeps everything within our boundaries, I'd go for it. Let's talk about Mona experience. Can you talk? Maybe very helpful for us. Let me explain it. But let me explain it maybe. What are our boundaries? What we sign up to? What we sign on to? No kissing on the lips, no touching privates. Have you signed? Have you signed yet? What? You were talking about all the fun stuff. Just kidding. What a fucking creep, dude. A lot of people don't know, but Atsuko did graduate from here. But it was in Al's Asian massage training and hairdressing. No, and nail salon tech. So there you go. 34 years in the game. Ain't that right, Atsuko? Atsuko's got more fucking degrees than Phil does. I was just joking. He began drinking regularly on ops, justifying oral sex, nudity, and bed sharing with each other, creating situations precarious enough that he could vehemently argue these actions were necessary to accomplish the mission and retrieve information that would make all the difference in saving countless lives. Tim kept saying we needed a more intensive training. That it's Jessie you got to worry about. She flips burgers and has armpit hair. Tim kept saying we needed a more intensive training than we had done before and said Coop had made all the plans so that Tim and I would both be surprised. He had scheduled a trip to Florida for this special training where he would be meeting a Ukrainian operator, first routed through New York for a surprise appointment for just the two of us. Tim had been trying to arrange for a sexual massage for quite some time and was infuriated when our flight was canceled and could not be rebooked, even on another airline. To get us there in time for the appointment, Mike arranged for a midnight flight direct to Florida instead, thankfully skipping JFK. So Tim and Coop spent hours scouring Salt Lake City for a place where we could get a sexual massage that day when the first place failed. Tim yelled at Coop over the phone that to find something. Coop drove us from place to place, but they were all full. Tim was relentless, offering women at the desk up to $500 to get us into a room. Damn, he wants it. This is one of his big fantasies, isn't it? You're supposed to be AFK, Spicy Atsuko. Go ahead and leave me. I'm not family anyways. I see how the mods treat me. At least Miss Priss just told me that I was part of her homeowners association and nothing more. He finally found a sketchy massage place where he was demanding enough that the therapist allowed us to squish together onto a single massage bed so he could rub us both at the same time. Tim was persistent about asking her if she could do a Nuru massage. You guys know what a Nuru massage is? A Nuru massage it's big in porn. But like basically it's completely naked massage where they use like this kind of really thick, like sticky, almost like baby oil stuff, but it's sticky. Like you can like stretch a string of the shit out. Like it's super sticky. It sticks to the body. And they use their body. They don't use their hands. They use their body to massage your body. Basically, it's usually done on like a fucking air mattress or something because it's so messy. But yeah, they use their body to massage your body. And then in a porn, they always end up fucking and figuring out it's their stepmom or something. But I don't think your stepmom works at like the legitimate places. I don't know. Nuru means spread your pace like a volcano ejaculation. Well, thank you, Etsuko. I appreciate it. Tim was persistent by asking her if she could do a Nuru massage or bring in someone who could, and he tried to get her involved in any sexual talk he could elicit. She did offer him a hand job if he wanted. He asked her if she ever got sexy with her clients and teased her about taking off her shirt. Tim kept acting like all this was part of the training designed by Coop, and they were handing me many missions to accomplish. This time, on the bed, Tim gave me the assignment to get the massage therapist to strip down for us. I refused, as if he was joking. He was not. That seemed criminal to ask of an innocent bystander to our training. I think Code Monkey Z liked to do something similar. Yeah, on his pig farm. He liked to use the pig mud and the piglets for a massage like that. When we finally left, before Tim was ready to, but because we now had limited time before our flight, I called him out about asking me to corrupt her. He shot back saying, she's anything but innocent. She was willing to give me a hand job. Jesus Christ, after you fucking... Imagine asking somebody thousands of times to sexually gratify you, and then when they do it, you're like, you whore! I knew it! He spoke disparagingly about me when Coop picked us up, telling him I had gone soft. For the remainder of the training trip, Tim didn't have much of anything to say to me, including having me participate in any further training, which is supposedly the whole point of the trip. I didn't participate in anything essential or unique and spent those Florida days primarily alone. Tim specifically left behind at the house rather than taking me to visit Tony Robbins as promised. It was clearly my punishment for pushing back on and questioning his instructions. I told Coop about the incident with the massage therapist, and he was definitely very concerned. But there were no repercussions for Tim. Of course there wasn't. The lady's like, I can give you a hand job. And he's like, I can't even get a boner. Sorry. I just like to yell at women until I come with a limp dick. I now see many contradictions between how Tim protected himself with little concern for me and others, while creating in me a determination to risk everything to protect him and us as a partnership and OUR as a whole. It's ironic that he claimed it took him a while to detox from Brian Black mode. Brian Black is Tim's alias, which is often his excuse for a foul mouth or inappropriate behavior. But he wasn't concerned that other operators might need to as well before returning home and getting back to real life. I wasn't offered any help, therapy, and almost any contact between operations. Tim has become a hero by proclaiming how he puts himself in real danger, but he was discrediting of other operators, including myself, who took on the same risk. For example, consider the statement put up by Spear Fund. Tim enlisted top stylists and Hollywood-level help to get disguised, but was not concerned about other operators being exposed, even if it meant we couldn't return back to the country in the future with family or friends. When my identity was directly compromised with cartel, Tim dismissed it as a non-issue, saying it would be dangerous if it was him, but not for me. Tim believed his family needed help and protection while he was away, but others didn't, despite that I'm the only one my kids can rely on to provide, and that we're side by side going into the dark and risky places. I'm not stating this for sympathy or accolades, but to express a pattern of Tim's inability and unwillingness to acknowledge and or attend to the needs of others, including those of his partners and team. I felt extremely unprotected in every way. Tim would remind me to turn in my expenses and get paid after these operations, saying, that's a lot of money, as though I would be compensated well. After all, Tim was highly compensated, but that was not the case. I was initially offered so many dollars a day, a super low operator rate compared with other services, which made it financial strain to go out for days or weeks at a time. There were many hidden costs of both leaving and being involved, which were not well compensated, especially taking into consideration the time to prepare for before an op and recoup after. The all-day night schedule away from family and other life essential opportunities, let alone the physical, emotional, financial risk of this particular endeavor, which isn't offset on a contract basis like it might be with long-term and salaried benefited employee. I finally settled for X amount a day, less my professional day rate, which doesn't demand all-night work time away and personal risk, let alone require me to randomly available for the unpredictable travel schedule and follow-up missions. Tim greatly facilitated my mindset that compelled me to consider doing what I did. He told me that after we met last year, he remembered me and would have known me if he had seen me at the mall or in any crowd. He meets hundreds of thousands of people, but he would have known me. With me, he said, there was something different. We connected in a way that was so rare for him. Even through high school, he never felt connected to anyone and started to wonder what was wrong with him. Catherine was the only woman he had ever really connected with. It was such an anomaly that he could feel connected to her. So he knew he was supposed to marry her. Likewise, he felt so connected to me as if we had known each other forever and before, like we had had a relationship in a past life. Perhaps we were married or something, which he questioned Janet about. And I was surprised because he had shared with me how she had revealed many things about this principle of recycled lives, or were soul brother sister. I love the cause and mission of OUR enough that I was willing to excuse a lot with Tim's justifications and convincing. But after my experience in the Dominican Republic, I could not run fast enough through the airport to get home. I was physically and emotionally ill. When Tim asked me to speak and encourage potential operators, I told him I wouldn't feel comfortable with that until there was some reform. Sadly, it could never happen with him at the root of the organizational problems. Deception. I understood the tactic and risks associated with couples' rules as far as it was written and required. The spoken and understood agreement kept me safe until it didn't. Tim began pushing all boundaries and asserting that behaviors outside of the initial rules were to be employed as needed. Tim found sufficient reasoning and was very convincing that frequent sexual boundary breaches were essential. I was led to believe that Tim had been doing this for years, as had the other male operators. I thought it was standard operating procedure as an essential way to protect everyone involved. Here we go. From Tim. I'll explain tomorrow in more detail. Super difficult to explain on text how this works. We kind of have it down to an art at this point, but it requires operators to be artists too and flex with situations and act like they probably never have before. That's the irony. Most of our best operators would never in a million years act in real life as they do in undercover. That's why I can trust them. What I have discovered in the past few months has been very revealing to me about Tim's real tactics and motives. Until I was able to talk with other women about their experiences with Tim, I did not know the lies he had been telling them about me. What I didn't know until now was that Tim was telling other women and some of his staff that the same things about me to convince them that he was in need of a new operator who behaved well. I was now counted among those with whom he couldn't work anymore. He told them I had fallen for him, tried to kiss him, and seduced him in bed. I will not accept being lied about and disparaged when I have risked so much and given so much without asking for anything in return, and I'm not okay with staying silent when someone else is being lied about and publicly disparaged. I recently received advice to beware of people who were talking about others. They are talking about you too. I'm absolutely dumbfounded that Tim would defame me that way while I was doing everything I could to protect his image. He was smearing mine. I have a solid reputation among those who know me personally. Tim knows who I really am and was still capable and willing to burn me by painting me as an untrustworthy and slandering my character for his own self-indulgent purposes. This outright dishonesty and betrayal proves that Tim insidiously pitted us against each other to prevent us from talking. His manipulative scheme to secure our reliance on him alone. As it turns out, his efforts did not discredit our collective character, but exposed his own. As truth and deception battle, darkness will never overpower light. Then she's got an event log, and it says, March 2021, Tim on set, he tells me he's not a sex addict. Redacted, tells Tim to watch it, Romeo. Our Lehigh office, hair, dye, cut, and tattoos. Tim asks, OUR Lehigh office. Tim asks about being waxed, being willing without hesitancy to do whatever is required to save women and children. He's impressed with how open I am to work and requirements. Mexico City. Sneaking out to the guest house to apply tattoos, Tim begins the touching and practice of getting physically connected. He feels increasingly connected and asks Jeanette about our relationship in past lives. Asks derisively if I'm embarrassed to leave the door open while I'm applying my bronzer in the bathroom. Tim acts caught when Redacted comes downstairs unexpected. Asks derivatively if I'm embarrassed to leave the door open while... Damn. Cancun time in the ocean. My discomfort with the closeness and tactfully pushing back. Coop sees us on the beach holding hand. Tim worries about being caught, says I can't cheat on Catherine, and I reassure him that will never happen with me. Calls me into his room while reading scriptures and comments about how connected he feels, how he wishes he could stay close at night, how if anything happened to Catherine, he would marry me. Tim wants to stay in my room on the separate bed. I refuse. He later tells me how he felt rejected. Redacted takes me to lunch and berates me for my role. I believe this to be standard procedure, and I'm shocked that Redacted is suggesting I've done something wrong. Massage parlor. Minors offering massages. Find female trafficker who offers us whatever we need. Tim recounts stories of deep betrayal for those he had worked closely with, including a previous operator who insisted on kissing him, and he was furious so he can't work with her anymore. How depression and suicidal ideation had overtaken him, how he had a hard time being home, asked me to please pray because he trusts my connection with the Lord. I pray aloud as we put our heads together. Comes to my house and can't resist touching me and is saddened when I scoot away from him on the couch. April 2021. Brought on his primary team, Tim makes sure we have a house with a hot tub, touches inappropriately, specifically intent on trying to turn me on, asking me if I hadn't orgasmed. Did you finish? I did twice in my pants already. Went to a strip club in the evening, spent an hour in a private room with a topless woman who tried to seduce us while Tim faked oral on me. I had a physical traumatic response when we left the club. Tim held me until I had calmed down. He still wanted to continue fishing, so we entered a brothel where they introduced us to a lineup of prostitutes. Tim was deciding who we should take back into a room and asked me who I would choose. I was not up for it. Asked me constantly how I managed to separate the feelings and can turn it off when we're not on the town, back in the safe house, or specifically playing the role of a sexually charged couple. May 21. Mission in Mexico City. Planning business venture with female trafficker. Island in BVI. Tim asked me for help separating from me while we're on the island since he feels rejected when I resist his advances. Catherine is brought to the island as a surprise to Tim, who then actively keeps his distance from me for the week until she leaves, revealing that he has blurred our professional relationship. Tim sees and treats me as the other woman whom he must dismiss to avoid jeopardizing his relationship with Catherine. The night before we're to leave to search for traffickers on the other islands, Tim apologizes for his mistreatment and hopes he can reconnect before continuing our mission. July 21. 5:45 a.m. Get Tim ready. Hair dyed blue. Tats piercing. Left at 8 a.m. in Premier Black car service for airport. SLC to Cancun. Happy shuttle to Breathless. They wouldn't let us in due to improper ID. Barely missed Rigo's, trafficker's boss. So Tim paid Rigo $12K US dollars cash to meet us at another place with his boss. Then raced to Coco Bongo to meet Rigo. Tim tells team he's backing away from ops. He's been saying this for months, and I hope he's serious this time. October 2021. First aid, OSINT, Humint, open source intelligence, human intelligence, dinner clubs. Tim asks about my boyfriend, how far I've gone with him, and if now I'm going to be hesitant to be as sexual with Tim. Before clubbing, Tim asked me to be a witness to what happened in a hotel room with the trainee who tried to seduce him and get him to finger fuck her. I insist he tell Coop and Matt. Tim wants to go to strip clubs and SLC as part of training. Need to go buy some clothes. I did bring a couple tats. They won't recognize me. And I have some jewelry and one polo. They are too busy trying to peek the camel toe through the panties as Utah strippers can't get naked. Actors meeting. That's Salt Lake City, by the way. Actors meeting, role play, with students at shifts. Tim talks with his son present about the trainee who wanted him to finger fuck her in a hotel room, embarrassingly crude with trainees in mock situations. February 22. I'm on secondary team. Tim talks insistently about the female operator he can't stand being with any longer and how she is pushy and verbose, i.e. she doesn't just go along with everything he says. Says she freaked out about the cartel association and he couldn't continue to work with her. Tim says the other operator refuses to go into the cartel territory where we're doing this thing. He asked me to join him on primary. I met with a trafficker and boy who Tim says is the cartel's golden boy because he looks so young. He's in high demand. They can't send him out multiple times a day. They can send him out multiple times a day for $4K an hour. When I asked a few days later, Tim told me that the boy was 15 and had been trafficked since he was 12. They still couldn't find his family. On an operation earlier this year, I talked with the aftercare director there who said that the boy was propositioned for that evening by his neighbor and that it was the first time that it had happened to him. So Tim just lied. He's even lying about the people that are around him and what's going on. I need all the training at a strip club. We do take down the police don't arrest me and instead expose me as an accomplice as they take me outside and ask me to hand over the money in front of the local SWAT team. March 22. Tim insists I meet him at the hot tub. Tells me all about the tantric massage with redacted and operator, saying she was excited to take some of the techniques back to her marriage. Okay, that's what he was saying. She wanted to take it back to her marriage and her husband. Okay. He learned some techniques in tantric and would love to show me. Tim said, I'm going to do something. I promise I won't touch you. Trust me. Moves his hand between my legs and presses firmly behind my vagina 6 times to activate sexual chakras or something. Evening in Dominican Republic at a fantasy house of suspected trafficker John, name changed. Continuous rounds of alcohol drinks, a surprise show with 3 girls whom John said come regularly to perform with fully revised costumes, choreography, and music. Tim tells me the plan. I am to stand in panties at the top of the stairs with drinks until there are witnesses, then summon Brian to go to bed alone with me. Some of the household guests and staff heard me invite, then saw Brian holding me from behind with drinks and warned we would miss the party. Other female operator stays down unaccompanied at the bar to represent us at the party. Massage parlor, redacted cafe, with the Haitian woman he refers to as his boss, who is pimped, and her 15-year-old daughter, i.e. not her daughter. Tim lies on bed on the other side of the room divider as we get massaged. These massages are always gross mockeries, not real, not clean, and not relaxing. More massages at the seedy Haitian place. In separate rooms upstairs, my nice glasses were stolen by the time I got up. Evening at John's house. Both women, Russian and Ukrainian, join us in the bedroom. Tim has been heavily drinking, lays out the plan for me to do new boundary break of removing my top, take charge of the time with the ladies because I am the boss. It's such weird fantasies. And I don't even care if he has these weird kinks, but you can't do it as, if you dominate the situation with you, 2 other women, and me, that'll save so many kids. What? To push his head down between my legs so they'll believe we're having oral sex. Tim gets completely naked, then sleeps drunk on the floor, obviously not protecting me, until he climbs into bed. This night and the night before were horribly disgusting situations that I primarily had to fend for Tim and even take the touching and sucking from the other women. I left incredibly vomitous and still want to throw up thinking about it. Vomitous? How do you say that? Vomitous. Is that right?
Vomitus.
Vomitous. And still want to throw up thinking about it. I guess the root word's vomit. Vomitous. John arranges for me to have a private message in his home. A private massage in his home. The lady ordered in to give the massage is the same we found previously who had worked on Tim. John is already suspicious about our wanderings from the day before and walks in on us as I'm on the table exposed. I feel compelled to enjoy her massage, which includes stroking and violating me until I fake an orgasm. God damn. Yeah, I don't really buy into like, oh my God, the world's changing. This shit's always been going on. It's just hasn't been this prevalent on the internet. Can you think of a time 10 years ago when you ever spent this much time on the internet researching shit or reading about shit or somebody's details? It's just everything's becoming more available. Like that weird story with the preacher and his wife that committed suicide or whatever that just came out. Like shit like that's happened forever, but now we're just all over top. We see it all the time, and people like me cover it. Like some people, I'm the only streamer they watch and the first streamer they've ever watched. Not everybody. A lot of other people watch other people. That's great. But I'm just saying, like, every story that I would have ever covered from the time you first started watching me to now was something that you wouldn't have heard about. July 31st through August 4th training. Meet up in Salt Lake at CD Motel 6. Since our flight to JFK, where he planned to surprise me, Tim had me going under false pretenses with tantric massage before flying to Tampa. Wanted to discuss this genius new technique Redacted came up with where he places his dick underneath me, and it totally looks like we're having sex, but we're not. So they're all completely full. Duh. That's called a pussy job, by the way. A pussy job. You got a hand job, you got a blow job. A pussy job is where like like she would use her body weight and be on top and just be sliding linear instead of it going in, sliding linearly across it. Tim becomes desperate to get us into a sexy massage, offering cash up to $500 for the lady to find us a room so we can experience new room massage. He tries to get me to get the massage therapist to take off her clothes. I refuse. The remainder of the trip, supposedly for training purposes, I'm irrelevant. Evidence that I had not fulfilled my purpose. Exhibit C, statement of DM. So that was the end of that one at the timeline. There was also the 2 times that I think he dry humped her until he had to go masturbate. That's goddamn. So he can fool the traffickers that aren't even there. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I don't think... So there's like some really fucked up shit that never made the media and there weren't streamers at the time, or maybe people that didn't cover this. Like there's been a... If you go back and look, but the problem is, like if it wasn't small enough to make... If it wasn't in your local area to where it made local news, and it wasn't big enough to make national news, no one documented it at all, unless you go pull the police reports and shit. DM. Damn, it's already 1 a.m. We'll try to get through DM. In October 2021, I went to lunch with my friend who was involved in OUR. In the midst of our conversation, I brought up that I was interested in saving women and children who were victims of violence and sex trafficking. I did not know that she was involved with OUR. She told me she may have an opportunity for me to get involved with the organization. We chatted a little bit more, and she told me that she would reach out to her contact in the organization. At this point, I did not know who the person was or anything about the organization. A couple of weeks went by, and I was contacted by Matthew Cooper, a.k.a. Coop. He is a male operator at OUR who works very closely with Tim. He had told me that they were doing some training, but that they would not be starting a new training course for a while. He asked if I would be interested in being an actress for the other operators to practice scenarios with. I told him that I would rather be more directly involved and actually be the one to go out and save women and children. That was about all our phone call consisted of. He told me he would be in contact with me at some point in the future. A couple of weeks went by, and he reached out again. He asked me if I would be willing to come up to the OUR gym and do a training session. I told him yes, absolutely. On October 28, 2021, I went to the OUR gym located at West Draper, Utah. No, it's South 200 West Draper, Utah. When I got to the gym, Coop was waiting for me inside. There were a few other women there as well, and a girl named Redacted. We did some basic training exercises involving self-defense, then covered some awareness tactics. After a certain point, Ballard arrived at the gym, and I spoke with him one-on-one in the back room. When we spoke, he told me briefly about what the organization did and how I could potentially become involved. I expressed to him very clearly my interest in becoming an operator. He told me that it was a hard job, and I would have to be willing to do a lot of really potentially dangerous things. He said that I would see a lot of dark things, as well as be in some very seedy and gross places. He touched briefly on the couples ruse, as well as as well and asked if that was something I would be able to do. I told him that I was an actress and that I thought I could be quite good at being an operator. I then went back out after speaking with him for a bit longer. I continued doing some training with Coop and the other two girls that were at the gym. Ballard's son Blaine was also there doing some training with us. So his son's there as well. I would say the craziest thing that I've had to do, like I've never been like undercover with like fucking Hell's Angels or blah, blah, blah. But I have been in situations where people knew we were there, but we weren't supposed to be American. And when we went out, we wore the local clothes and stuff. Clearly, you could tell we were foreigners, right? We didn't look like we were from the Middle East. But they weren't supposed to know we were American. And one of the hardest things I ever seen was there was some type of dispute behind a shop. We were going through this shop. This whole shopping center, basically you had to cut through all these tents. There was no like walkway, right? It was just tent. Very few walkways through. So we were like cutting through these shops. And out the back of one of them, there was some type of dispute. And this guy, Middle Eastern guy, it was actually two guys. One of them was holding the other woman's wrist, had this woman, and they were slapping the shit out of her. And we all, there was four of us. We were actually going to meet a guy and to exchange some money for local money. We had, what did we have? Canadian dollars? We had money and we needed local money. And we were meeting a guy that was a contact that we were supposed to talk to and a money exchanger that wasn't like a street exchanger. And we all froze. Like it just out of habit, I guess from being like from Western countries where we don't beat the shit out of people. We all froze. And like I could tell, like if we would have stepped in, it would have been so fucking, it would have blew everybody's cover, right? Because no one else even looked. Like he backhanded her right as we were coming out of the thing, and the guy grabbed her by the wrist and picked her back up, and he went to hit her again, and we were just fucking standing there. Like it was so crazy. I don't know. It was just wild. And none of us were even really allowed. None of us were supposed to be talking. We had two guys that spoke the language from the country we were supposed to be from, and they had the right accent and everything. So the rest of us, we only had one of those guys with us. The rest of us weren't supposed to be talking at all. So we just had to fucking, like we didn't have to freeze. We were supposed to keep walking, but we just had to stand there after we froze. And then luckily it kind of clarified itself and we went on or whatever. But it was pretty bad. And just that reaction, like just seeing some big ass dude fucking hit a woman. I don't know. That's crazy. Anyways, after the self-defense tactics, Ballard said that he thought we should continue training in a different way later that evening. He said that he would now take it up a level. They wanted to essentially test how well we would respond to certain uncomfortable or intense situations. He told us about using an app called Signal to communicate and how we had to be very careful with text messages. He said that we could not talk to anyone about this stuff ever. I signed an NDA as asked and left it there at the gym. I never received any type of copy of this. We were told to meet later that night back at the gym. I believe it was around 10:30 p.m. that I arrived. Coop, Redacted, Ballard, and I were all supposed to go out as first team. First team meant that we would be the ones to go inside the strip club, try to gather information from people as part of our training. There were two other men that I recall being there that night. They were on the second team that night. Second team's job was to maintain communication, follow us around discreetly in a vehicle of their own. One of them was Ballard's son, Blaine. The other was an older gentleman. I do not remember his name. Ballard and Redacted were partners that night and met up at her apartment. They were supposed to take an Uber to meet us at the OUR gym after getting in character together. They missed their first Uber and were waiting around for a while. I think we ended up having to meet them at the first strip club. We were supposed to pretend like we didn't know them when we were at the clubs on our training op. The second team was supposed to just follow us around and keep in contact via messages on the Signal app. We all had to constantly remain in character even while interacting on the app. Tim and Redacted were partners for the couples ruse training that night, and Coop, Redacted, and I were a throuple for the couples ruse, 3-person couple. for the couples ruse. While waiting to head out and start our training, at one point, Ballard's son came over to talk with us. Lesson 1, grinding. Lesson 1, dry humping. Lesson 2, soaking. I wonder if Phil's red team was there too. I never saw Phil on any of the operations I was on, but he could have been there. You know, he's a master of disguise. While waiting to head out and start our training, at one point, Ballard's son came over and talked with us. He made a comment about how his dad had given him something to take, presumably some type of pill, but I'm unsure of what. Damn. He then said he felt high and was kind of laughing about it like it was no big deal. It really concerned me, though. I didn't like that we were supposed to be pretending like this was a real life scenario and that he would be out of it. It was a real situation, potentially out of the country, where lives depend on it. Then I would be so anxious and scared. I would never be able to trust someone not in the right state of mind. Not to mention, it disturbed me and was inappropriate that his dad had given it to him. At some point, I don't remember exactly when, Ballard told me that he would sometimes take something in order to deal with the stress and to help him get into character as well as loosen up. I drove with Coop to the strip clubs in Salt Lake City for this training. I don't remember the names of all the clubs and bars or the order, but I know we went to these clubs for sure. Trails Gentlemen's Club, Exotic Kitties Gentlemen's Club, the American Bush, and Swingin' Richards. Swingin' Richards sounds like a cool place. We, Coop, Redacted, and myself got there and went inside and sat down. I got an energy drink from the bar, and we all sat in a booth together. I saw Ballard and Redacted at the first strip club. Redacted was sitting on Tim's lap, and they were all over each other playing the part. Ballard was in character as Brian and wore those big glasses to disguise himself. Brian is his alter ego of sorts. The idea, I wonder if it's like Scott's alter ego, Max. The idea behind going to the strip club was for Coop and Ballard to see how well I could get information out of people and how I'd respond to being in a darker environment around certain types of people. Ballard would point out people in the club and tell me to go try and either get their phone number, find out where they lived, or a variety of other questions. I don't remember how many strip clubs or bars we went to exactly, but I think we went to 3 strip clubs as well as a regular bar at the beginning and then another bar at the end. No alcohol was consumed by anyone that I saw in my throuple. While at these clubs and bars, Coop, Redacted, and I would hold hands, sit next to each other, and just generally pretend to be a couple. Nothing overtly inappropriate. Like, Coop seems like he's doing it the right way, right? Like, there's no problem with, like, holding hands and shit or, like, pretending to be, together or on a first date where you can, like, act awkward with each other. Nothing overtly inappropriate ever happened while I was training with Coop. I felt like he was in character while still keeping things professional for the most part. If that had been what Ballard had wanted for the couples ruse, it wouldn't have bothered me as much. His version was not that, unfortunately. During all this, I occasionally saw Ballard and Redacted. They acted out the couples ruse as well, just more extreme. Lap sitting, going into private rooms in the back, dances, etc. At the last club we went to, Redacted and Tim were in the back by themselves in a private room. Tim had asked Redacted to give him a lap dance. She was supposed to show him that she could do the job. So even though she was, this guy is like the most disgusting motherfucker while claiming he's rescuing kids. The most disgusting motherfucker. So even he's living like a fucking drug lord or some shit. So even though he was hesitant, she did it, and he has this clean cut appearance, and he's living like Jesus Christ, like Tony Montana, and he's supposed to be the kid savior. I don't know, it's just wild. So even though she was hesitant, she did it in order to prove herself. She started giving him a lap dance, but shortly after she started, Ballard's son ended up coming inside. He walked into the club's back room and saw his dad Redacted together like that. It made him extremely upset because Redacted had not wanted to do it in the first place and had been reassured multiple times that Ballard's son would not be coming inside or see them acting out the couple's ruse. Redacted was freaking out a bit and came and told me what had happened. At this point, Ballard came out from the back room and talked to me in the club. He had his arms around me, and we were chest to chest. We were talking more about the couple's ruse and that, and what that would involve, as well as some other things like how his wife was going to kill him if she found out their son, Blaine, had come into the strip club. I cannot remember exactly what else was said at that moment. Shortly after that, we went to one last bar. Ballard and Redacted did not meet us there. After that last place, we decided to call it a night. I drove with Coop and Redacted back to our OUR gym. where he met up with Ballard and Redacted. At this point, I think it was coming up at 4 a.m. Ballard told me I did a good job, then talked to us about the night and how that experience only scratched the surface of what it would be actually like to go on ops. Tim texted me the next day on October 29th and said I was a badass and had done an awesome job the night before. He then asked me to come to meet him at OUR American Fork office, located in American Fork, Utah, and I told him that I would. On November 1st, 2021, I went up to the address he sent me. When I arrived, Ballard and Matthew Cooper were both there. Ballard asked me to come up to the office to speak with him privately. When we sat down, he started talking to me about the couple's rules and how important it was, telling me exactly how intimate certain scenarios would be. He asked me over and over if I would be willing to act out certain sexual acts, continually getting more explicit. Doing all of this, he made it clear that I could not tell anyone about the things that were happening between us. He made it seem like it could be a life or death situation if I discussed information, and or that I would get into trouble as well. He also made it seem like I could face a life or death situation if I was not willing or able to act out certain sex acts well enough. This is when he started pushing the idea of needing to practice with each other. He started telling me about other female operators and how they had been in situations where they had to be completely naked in the couples' rooms, naked in the rooms in front of each other and while getting massages. He told me that the point of the couples' rooms was for you to be able to block for each other, meaning that on ops, you would intercept sexual touches from traffickers or sex workers. He stated that he started to become explicit with the situations that had happened or that could happen. He told me that he wanted to train me to be his new primary partner on ops. I would be paid for my time as a contractor with the organization. He said that operators before me had fallen in love with him, that someone tried to climb into his bed at the safe house. They had pushed for relationships with him. He told me that other partners before him had gone a bit crazy and he had to end things. I knew he was married, and he said because of that, he had one rule for the couples rules, which was no kissing on the lips. He made it seem that everything else besides maybe full-on penetrative sex would potentially be expected. And it seems like, even from these women's claims, that he didn't penetrate anybody with his penis. It was everything else, up to and including a technique where he slides his dick under your pussy to simulate sex or simulating oral sex. Or he never penetrated anybody, it seems like. That was his line or whatever it was. During all this, I felt like everything was a test. Every question or action was proving myself. I had briefly gotten into my personal background with him and explained why helping on operations as an operator was so important to me. Saving women and children truly meant so much to me as a person on a personal level. I wanted to make a difference. I had been a longtime supporter of OUR and knew that's what I wanted my future to involve. Tim then asked me some personal questions about my life, like if I was married, if I had my own place, and other things of that nature. Tim then became more open about things that could happen or that I could expect on ops, and that I would have to be willing to do those things in order to save children. This included being naked in front of each other, touching each other, imitating sex acts, talking dirty to each other, and all sorts of things of that nature. It was presented to me as, if we were in a life or death situation, would you be willing to do X, Y, and Z? And of course, if it came down to saving women and children, I would be willing to do it. If it was a life or death situation, I would be willing to do whatever I had to. For him, the problem is it's never a life or death situation. But I'm sure there's lots of people that'd be like, yeah, I'd fucking suck your dick if someone was going to blow my brains out, right? But it's never that. It's like, we're in a massage parlor with two Asian women. Oh, it's life or death time. Come on over here. Lick this ball sack. For him, he said if he was going to get a new partner, he needed to be able to practice. He would say that it was really important for us to have intense chemistry. He wanted to know if I was attracted to him and wanted to make sure that he would be able to turn me on. I was really uncomfortable with these questions, obviously, but at the time, in my mind, I felt as if it was a test and I didn't want it to fail the test. I wanted to become a part of the team. Things then proceeded to become more physical. It started out with him just resting his hands on my knee. Then he started running his hands up my legs. He slowly started to become more comfortable and was running his hands all the way up my thighs. We were sitting in chairs facing each other. At this point, we were no longer talking. I was pretty shocked he was touching me so intimately. I guess in my mind, I hadn't thought that he would begin practicing then. I guess I had assumed that he wouldn't need or want to practice until at least we were heading on an operation. He moved closer to me and started running his hands along other parts of my body. I remember there was a lot of touching, rubbing, and grabbing with his hands across pretty much my entire body. At this point, I remember then being pushed up against the office door. Ballard was against me, and he was sort of grinding his body against me. It was obvious that he had an erection. He can't get erections. This is like Prince Charles. When there's like this woman's like, I danced with him. He got so sweaty. He's like, I actually have a medical condition. I can't sweat. Tim Ballard has a medical condition and he can't get erections. It was obvious that he did not have an erection. I corrected that for you. At one point, his thigh was kind of pressed in between my legs and kind of moving up and down against me. There was no kissing on the lips, seeing as that was his rule, but there was a lot of kissing and mouthing movement around my shoulders and neck and other parts of my body. At this point, I was very uncomfortable, but again, I felt like I could not fail the test. I needed to prove that I could handle what he was doing. If I was not strong enough to handle this and deal with this, then I would not be able to go out and rescue women and children. And that was not an option for me. I wanted so badly to be a part of this organization, but still I was so unbelievably uncomfortable. I didn't understand why he had to be practicing right then. I mean, we weren't on an op. He had only met me one other time before this, and it hadn't made sense to me that he felt like we needed to practice this now. Things were moving so quickly, physically, and I hadn't done any other sort of training. It was all happening really fast. He then slowly worked his way down my body until he was kind of kneeling down in front of me and was pulling at my jeans a little bit. He then lifted up my shirt and was licking and kissing my stomach and getting lower on my body, still tugging at my jeans as if gauging my reaction. At this point, the door pushed open from the outside and he had to back up away from me. Coop pushed open the door and came inside and was just looking at us both. Tim kind of just played it off casually. I didn't know what to say or do. I felt like Coop knew exactly what was going on. I could just see it on his face. It seemed like he was unhappy with the situation he'd walked in on. He didn't say anything or ask any questions, though. Coop wanted to speak with Ballard then, I believe, and Ballard told him that we would be coming downstairs soon. Coop gave us another look and then left and shut the door behind him. We talked for a minute longer, and Ballard tried to start things physically again, but I had to leave for an appointment, and I used that as an excuse to leave. Ballard then began questioning me about how I had felt about things. He wanted to know if I had been turned on during that or if I was still turned on and worked up. He wanted to know exactly what's the moisture content of that vagine. You mind if I take a sample? I'll do one of those old plug it up in there and then check the wind kind of deal. You know, that'll tell me. I didn't quite know how to answer those questions, so I told him something along the lines of, yeah, you're a handsome man. It all felt like a test to me, so I tried to say what he wanted to hear and react the right way. I kept thinking about how he had a government background, and they had probably taught him those techniques, and that I should trust him. He told me he was really attracted to me. He told me that he wanted to have me do more training, and that the next training would be even more intense. He asked if I had a couple days available, possibly in November, to go and do a training weekend with him. He didn't specify if other operators would be going as well. He told me that he wanted me to start coming on ops with him. He then made it clear that he would want and need to practice more physical things like we had just done. I told him that I was an actress and I did this for a profession, so practicing wasn't necessarily needed on my part. I tried to say these things delicately as I did not want to offend him and jeopardize my chances of becoming an operator. He told me that practicing was fun and that it helped keep your relationship more exciting. He said in order for this, the couples ruse and operations, to be sustainable, it has to be fun. I immediately felt sick to my stomach, dirty, and panicked. I had been warned that I couldn't talk to other people about things that had happened. I had signed an NDA, and I was really anxious about breaking it. I also didn't want to lose my opportunity to work on operations. I called my friend Redacted. This is the first story we heard about in the first testimony where she says he licked her stomach or whatever, and told her I was really nervous to speak with her, but I felt like I needed to tell her something. I felt self for talking to her because Ballard knew she had been the one to get me involved with him, and the organization hadn't minded me asking her certain questions before. She was the only person he seemed okay with me communicating with about certain things. I knew he'd not want me telling her what had just happened between us, though it's supposed to be too secret between us, Ballard and myself. I told her I was scared to talk about it over the phone, and she told me that I could come and stop by her house later that evening. Over the phone, though, I did very briefly tell her a few things that had happened in the office with Ballard. She seemed pretty shocked and did not think that what had happened was normal or good, but I did not tell her a whole lot because I was really worried at the idea of getting in trouble or messing anything up. She reassured me that it was okay to stand firm about not wanting to perform any more sexual acts with him, even for the sake of practicing for an op. I knew my talent as an actress and knew I didn't need to. I went to my appointment and Ballard messaged me asking when I was coming back. I told him I wasn't sure if I'd be able to. He asked again if I would be coming back that night or not. I told him that I would if I could. After my appointment, I went back up to the OUR office. At that point, I was resolved on telling him that I would not want or need to practice any more sexual acts with him. I went back, and when I got there, Coop wanted to speak with me. So he sat down in the office and he asked me some questions about the night before when he had gone to the strip club once, about how I was feeling about things. I wanted to be honest with him, so I was. I told him that I was worried about Ballard a bit. I didn't get into any more details because I knew that he was friends with Ballard, and I was worried about him not being happy with what I said. It was jeopardizing my role in the organization. I did tell him that I felt Ballard needed some help. I told him I felt like Ballard had seen a lot of things that were probably messing with his mental state a bit. I told him that I felt like Ballard, as well as the other operators, needed to talk to someone, that they needed to see a therapist and work through some of those issues. I was really worried for Ballard's mental state at that point because of the pills, the way he was acting, the things I heard, and the sexual situation that had happened already without us even being out on an op. Coop did not necessarily disagree with me, but he also didn't agree with me. I then met with Tim again privately, and he started with wanting to practice some more and saying that in the near future we needed to keep practicing consistently in order to be a secure team together. I didn't want to make him too upset or offend him, but at this point I just genuinely wanted him to seek some help for his mental health's sake. I told him that I was worried about the things he had seen as an operator and hoped he had someone to talk to. I told him that I was worried that ops and the things he had been exposed to were negatively impacting his mental health. I told him that for the sake of his wife, Catherine, that I didn't think it was right to practice like that. I told him that us practicing sexual acts was not necessary. I reiterated that I was an actress. It was not needed, that I can turn it off and on as needed for the sake of the situation we were in at any given moment. That's what an actress does with all emotions and actions and scenes. He asked at some point something about if I had my own apartment and that going there would be an easier place to get more comfortable with each other. I don't remember at what point in the conversation that was. At that time, since I was going through a divorce, I was living with my family and did not have my own place, which I let him know. I don't remember exactly all the things we continued to talk about, but I think it was pretty much the same as earlier. We then were done. I don't remember the exact timing here, but at some point, Coop talked to Ballard, and Coop told him what I had said about him potentially seeing a therapist or seeking mental health. Ballard then confronted me and said, "Oh, I heard you think I'm crazy. I heard you told Coop that I'm losing my mind, that I'm completely crazy." Something along those lines. I told him, no, I didn't say I think you're crazy. I just think seeking therapy for some of the things you have seen should be a priority for not only you, but your entire team. I then threw out some ideas about how to better protect people in ops. I found out that no one is allowed to carry any type of weapon on them and that no one has any tracking devices in their phones or on their person. I told them, in my opinion, that was for the sake of safety of their operators, especially the female ones that could potentially then be trafficked, that it was important for them to seek some better safety methods. Up until this point in my conversations with Ballard, I had not even really been spoken to much about safety tactics or on an ops. Really, almost all of what Tim spoke to me about the whole time I was there was a couple's ruse, sexual acts, and all the things I would need to be prepared and willing to do with him. As I was getting ready to leave, they made it seem like they would be in contact in the next couple of days to continue training. I told them that I would be going out of town, but that we could plan something after that. I was prepared to keep working with him and be his new partner on ops if he would stop pushing the sexual practicing aspect and get some professional help. I still wanted this working relationship to work out so I could make a difference in the world by saving kids. I then left and called and asked Blank if I could stop by her house to speak with her. When I stopped by her house, I told her the things that had happened and asked her to please not tell anyone that I had told her. I was and still am very much nervous. She reassured me that the things that happened she did not think were okay and that I needed to stand my ground with him about no longer practicing the couple's ruse unless we were actively on an op and it was necessary. I then left her house and went home. I reached out to Ballard about when we would be able to meet up next when I was back in town. I was then invited to go to the OUR gala, and I told him that I would not be able to go. The last I heard from Ballard and Coop was on November 11th, 2021. Tim told me he had talked to his family and team, and I would no longer be going on ops. This is something he said to the other woman as well after they stood up to him in some way or another. When he realized he couldn't control or manipulate me any further sexually, he no longer wanted me as his partner. Coop called me and told me he would be back in the country soon and would keep training me. A couple weeks went by, and I still hadn't heard from them about coming back to do more training and to go on op like planned. I reached out a few times to just Coop, and finally he called me back. He made excuses for why he hadn't started my training again, but promised he would reach out in a few weeks. He never did. I tried to reach out once more and got no reply. At this point, I realized they had both shut me out. I can't even tell you how disappointed I was. I wanted to make a difference so bad. I had put so much hope into this new future. I had anticipated being paid for this new venture, but more than that, I would have been able to impact a positive change. To have that taken away because I didn't want to practice sexual things and keep being physical with Ballard hurts. Damn. All right, there's two more statements, I think. There's two more statements that I'm probably not going to get to. And then what's after that? Because this one statement's long as fuck, isn't it? Yeah. The last one's long as shit. All right, we'll cover those when we come in tomorrow. Guys, thank you for joining us. Tim Ballard sounds like a real piece of shit. He got some good PTSD. I just have nightmares where I wake up seeing all the faces of the people that I've killed. He got some like sexual deviant PTSD. I'm going to ask if I can trade mine out. Anyways, thank you guys for joining us. I appreciate it. Thanks for hanging out with me. Sorry I started so late and we ended up late. That was 100% my fault. I'll try to correct that and be here earlier. I got a new welder because personally I bought it, but I need to do some welding at work and I was tired of fucking with my old one. So hopefully I can get that knocked out in the next couple of days and be back in here with you guys. So thank you guys for joining us. I appreciate it. Thanks for being here. If you want to support the stream, if you like what we do, the people we expose, go to coldbeer.fund, coldbeer.fund. The show's 100% sponsored by viewers like you, and we'll see everybody on the next one. Have a good night. Love you. See you. Bye.
But I can tell you this about if this douchebag happens to see this particular show, you don't have the forking balls to call out the people on this planet by name and tell them exactly who they are and tell them the rest of the world who they are. You don't have the forking balls. You don't have the balls.
Okay, Scott.
Here we go, I think I started some shit. Listen off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in the best, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen none yet. Here we go, I think I started some shit. Listen off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in the best, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen none yet. And they say that I'm a lunatic. Well, listen, bitch, I came equipped with a quick wit and a 6 cents for the stupid shit. Well, my true believer, y'all need Jesus. Praise the Lord, head to the extreme. All these false fucking prophets who profit off of gossip. Worshiping drums, cocking, begging for a throat deposit. Swinging fucking meat hammers like fool in a thong.
Love you guys. See you, bye. I ran over, but I should have started earlier. That's 100% my fault. I gotta fix the Patreon schedule and get this stuff fixed now. Stop being so goddamn slow. But anyways, thank you guys for joining us. I appreciate it. If you want to support the show, please do. We could always use the support to keep the show going, and we'll see everybody on the next one. Have a good night.
Here we go, I think I started some shit. Listen off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in the best, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen none yet. Here we go, I think I started some shit. Listen off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in the best, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen none yet.